I was left at the altar when my fiancée ran off with my brother. 2 years later, she asked for my help, claiming she now saw the toxicity of my family. 2 years ago, I stood at the altar, ashamed and heartbroken. My fiancée ditched me an hour before the wedding and took off with my brother. I never saw it coming, or perhaps I overlooked the warning signs, because I adored her. We had been together for 5 years, and I assume we were happy. However, looking back, it is evident that I was unaware of many things. My family never treated me as a priority. My parents always favored my brother. He was the golden child, attractive, wealthy, and the type of guy everyone gravitated toward. I was the quieter one, always being compared to him, making me feel like I didn't measure up. Growing up, I was always asked why I couldn't be more like my brother. Or your brother did it. Why can't you? I expected things to change as we got older, but they didn't. If anything, things grew worse. My fiancée had everything I wanted in a partner: intelligent, attractive, and determined. However, she had a selfish side. It wasn't clear at first. It manifested itself in little ways, such as insisting on always getting her way or never apologizing when she wounded my feelings. I dismissed it because I loved her and believed we were creating a life together. I never expected her to betray me the way she did. The wedding was meant to be the best day of my life. Everything was ready: the venue, the food, and the guests. I awoke nervous yet delighted, knowing that I would soon begin a new chapter with the lady I loved. Then, 1 hour before the ceremony, she called me. Her voice was calm, almost frigid. When she told me she couldn't do it, she stopped loving me. Then she revealed the true bombshell. She had been dating someone else. That person was my brother. She didn't even appear guilty about it. She stated she didn't want to hurt me, but she felt compelled to follow her heart. I didn't even have time to digest what she said before hanging up. My parents, who had already arrived at the event, knew. My brother had told them earlier in the morning. Instead of supporting me, they tried to keep things calm to avoid humiliating themselves. When I addressed them, they defended her. They said things like, "Maybe it's for the best, and you don't want to marry someone who doesn't love you." My mother even had the arrogance to advise that I'd be happy for them. My father was no better. He simply stood there and ordered me to keep it together. It wasn't until later that I discovered my parents' involvement in all of this. My brother had always been interested in her, and they seemed to think she was too good for me. They decided she would be a better fit for him. They had been urging her to select him for months, even offering her financial support if she left me for him. I had no clue my family could be that deceptive. I walked out of the venue that day without looking back. I left everything behind, including my family, friends, and hometown. I couldn't stand being near any of them. I went to another state and started again. I got a job, a little apartment, and spent the next 2 years repairing my life. At first, it was difficult. I knew no one, and the loneliness was overwhelming. But as time passed, I discovered serenity. I met new people, began treatment, and concentrated on myself for the first time in my life. I did not inform anyone where I was or how to reach me. I didn't want anything to do with those who had deceived me. Then, 2 years later, my ex-fiancée arrived at my home. I had just returned home from work, and when I opened the door, I could scarcely recognize her. She appeared fatigued and worn out, as if she hadn't slept or eaten properly in days. Her once confident and polished manner was gone. She shook, and her eyes were red from sobbing. She told me that living with my brother had become a nightmare. He was manipulative, emotionally abusive, and disloyal. Behind closed doors, the beloved golden child turned out to be a monster. They had married shortly after our wedding catastrophe and had a child together, but their relationship had crumbled. My parents, who had previously been so willing to assist her, turned against her when she failed to achieve their expectations. She stated that she felt caged, alone, and terrified. She intended to divorce my brother, but was scared of what he may do. He possessed money, contacts, and a vicious streak. She was afraid he would wreck her finances and take their child away. She approached me because she believed I could assist. She asked me to testify in court about how toxic and manipulative my family was. She believed my testimony would boost her case and help her keep custody of her child. I stood there listening to her angry. She had made her decisions. She knew exactly what kind of person my brother was, yet she picked him over me. She allowed my family to manipulate her and went away without looking back. And now, after everything she has put me through, she expects me to come to her rescue. I told her no. I did not yell or quarrel. I just said no. I closed the door. It felt nice. But it did not last. A few days later, the texts began. She managed to spread the news about her arrival. Old friends and even mutual acquaintances began reaching out to me. They labeled me selfish, spiteful, and cowardly for refusing to assist a woman in need. Her former maid of honor, the same girl who was meant to support her at our wedding, sent me a lengthy note about how I was not man enough to step up. She claimed I was confirming my family's point, that I was weak and did not deserve my ex in the first place. I couldn't believe their arrogance. These people had departed from my life following the wedding. None of them had spoken up for me back then, but now they believed They had the right to lecture me. I disregarded the majority of it, but it still stung. They had no idea what I had gone through. They didn't care. They simply wanted me to fix a situation that was not mine to fix. Now I'm wondering if I did the proper thing. I owe my ex-fiancée nothing. She created her bed, and now she must lie in it. But there's a youngster involved. An innocent child who didn't pick this situation. Part of me wonders if my refusal to assist will harm him in the long run. At the same time, aiding her would mean reintroducing my family and her drama into my life. And I am not sure I am willing to do it. Reddit, what would you have done in my position? Did I make the right decision? Or am I also selfish? Update 1. I honestly didn't anticipate my post to get so viral. To be honest, when I originally started penning things out, I had no idea if anyone would care. But now I'm reading through hundreds of comments, some helpful, some difficult to read. And it's been a lot to comprehend. Thank you to everyone who has offered advice or simply expressed their thoughts. Whether you agree with me or not, I appreciate your support and diverse viewpoints. Writing all of this out has definitely helped me go through a lot of emotions and gain some clarity. But it's also brought out a lot of feelings I thought I'd bury deep down. After posting, I spent the rest of the evening reading the comments. Some individuals brought up points I hadn't considered, such as the possibility that getting engaged in my ex-fiance's legal difficulties may exacerbate the situation, not only for me, but for the child as well. Others were more direct, instructing me to keep as far away as possible. She created her bed. Now she may lie in it. Those statements helped me feel better about my first reaction to her turning up at my home. But then, there were the ones who mentioned something different. The child. I know I don't owe anything to my ex-fiancé. But hearing so many people say, the child is innocent in all of this, really got to me. Many of you suggested that I try to do something for the kid without being drawn back into the poisonous mess that is my family. And it is what I have been struggling with ever since. I don't want anything to do with her or my brother again. I don't want to be the hero or decent guy in a situation where I'm only setting myself up for further heartbreak. But at the same time, I feel compelled to do something, even if it isn't for her. It's funny though, after reading so many of your comments, I began to wonder if there was anything I could do that wouldn't need me to communicate with her again or get dragged back into the drama. I even pondered phoning a lawyer to see what would happen if I testified or aided in some manner. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's still not my responsibility to change anything, and especially not if it involves interacting with my poisonous family again. However, the guilt of knowing that the child is trapped in the center of this chaos persists. Then, like clockwork, my brother reappeared in the image. The email. Yesterday morning, I received an email from him. Yes, my brother, the one I haven't spoken to in 2 years. The last time we did this was when I canceled my wedding. His email was frigid, and simply reading it made my stomach plummet. It was short, and to the point. I heard our ex-fiancé asked you for aid. This is a tremendous error. If you become interested, keep out of family matters. You'll regret it. I stared at the message for much too long. I was inclined to respond, but then I thought, why the hell should I? This guy is the one who forced me out of my own life. He was the one who perpetrated all of this manipulation with my ex. And now, he believes he can tell me what to do. The arrogance. To be honest, I'm not sure if the word audacity is strong enough to describe how I feel about him. But I did not answer. I could not be bothered. It's almost funny how entitled he still feels. He has no idea what I've been through, or what I've had to deal with over the years. And yet, he believes he gets to decide how I should handle things. Number thanks. That was when the phone rang. An unknown number. And I am sure you can guess who it was. Yep, my mother. After 2 years of silence, she finally decided to phone me. The moment I picked up the phone and heard her voice, I was reminded of all the reasons I'd cut ties with her and my father. I didn't even get a "how have you been?" or "I miss you" before she got right into it. She began discussing the divorce, my brother, and how I needed to be the bigger person and maintain peace for the benefit of the family. That's when I snapped. I don't recall what I said, but I know I told her I didn't want to hear it anymore. She went on, however, about how difficult things were for my brother and how I was punishing the child by not intervening. I told her I didn't care and wasn't going to fix their mess anymore. I hung up after that. That conversation made me numb. For some reason, it reminded me of everything my parents had done to me, how they always favored my brother, how they tolerated his worst conduct, and how they always expected me to be the quiet one who simply accepted everything they threw at me. It has never been about me. Not once. I've always been the backup son, expected to deal with whatever trash came my way. Hearing my mother defend my brother again was like getting slapped in the face. It made me realize that nothing had changed, not with my parents or with him. And to be honest, it is why I am not returning. As tempting as it is to take the moral high ground, I know I'd only be perpetuating the toxic cycle. So I'm finished. I've made peace with going away. But this situation has resurfaced many old scars that I thought were healed. As much as I want to block everything out and pretend it's not happening, I can't ignore the reality that the child is caught in the center of it all. I keep thinking about how helpless he must feel as he watches everything unfold. I know he is innocent, but what if he is being emotionally manipulated, as my ex was? It kills me just thinking about it. Still, I keep telling myself that this is not my struggle. I've already been through enough, and I'm not about to be drawn back into their drama. I've been sitting with these emotions for a few days, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wants to just move on, leave them to their mess, and walk away forever. But there's another part of me that wonders if I can aid the child without getting sucked back into the fray. I'm not sure what the correct move is yet, but I do know one thing. I cannot allow myself to return to the person I was before, the one who was always trying to make everything better for everyone else while ignoring my own needs. I worked way too hard to get here to be dragged back in, but the remorse over the child? Yes, it is still there, and it isn't going away anytime soon. How would you handle my situation? Would you help, or would you just walk away? I'm having trouble finding the right balance. Update 2. I figured things would calm down following my last update, but I was mistaken. Instead, things have become even worse, and I'm honestly wondering how I put up with these individuals for so long. I feel like the universe is putting my determination to the test. Every time I believe I've erected a tall enough wall to keep them out, someone finds a way to sneak over it or slip through a crack. Since my mother's call, I've been completely inundated. It began with a few texts from my extended family, including aunts, uncles, and cousins, and now it appears that they have all established a single front. They're coming at me from all sides, accusing me of damaging the family by not supporting my brother, or worse, by remaining out of his family problems. Despite the fact that I am doing just that, it's as if they believe I'm bound to get engaged simply because we share blood. Some of them have even accused me of holding a grudge and not being a man about it. I've been working hard over the last 2 years to restore my life and move on from the toxic disaster they created. They now believe I should abandon everything in order to return to the drama. It is exhausting. They don't understand that leaving away was not a choice made out of spite, but out of necessity. I couldn't keep living in that familial dynamic. It was suffocating, but they do not want to hear that. To them, family means unwavering commitment, even if it means sacrificing your happiness and well-being. On top of all the familial drama, I've begun receiving emails from my ex-fiancée. She's been sending them every few days now. I initially ignored them, but ultimately caved in and opened one. I almost wished I hadn't, because they were all identical. She begs me to reconsider, emphasizing how much I can help her and her child. Each email is more urgent than the last, and she has even started sending photos of the child. I understand she's in a bad predicament, but the entire situation feels exploitative. She knows I'm not heartless, and I believe she's attempting to use that against me. She seems to know that if she tugs on my heartstrings, I will give in. The thing is, I am not stupid. I see what she is doing, but I can't deny it makes me feel guilty. I did not ask for those photos, and I did not want them. But she knows I'll look at them. And the child's face in those photos, with his little eyes looking up at me, guilt trips me more than anything else. I can't shake the feeling that I'm letting him down, although knowing that not becoming engaged is the correct thing to do. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, one of my old acquaintances contacted me unexpectedly. He's someone I haven't communicated with in years, but he obviously heard about the scenario through the grapevine. He called me late one evening, and when his name appeared on the screen, I almost didn't respond. I wasn't in the mood for another "you should do the right thing" conversation, but I answered anyway. He didn't even waste time exchanging pleasantries. He stepped straight in, telling me to be the larger person and aid my ex-fiancée, even if it was simply to safeguard the child. He went on to say that I couldn't just let a child suffer because of my brother's actions. I'm not sure if he didn't comprehend the whole picture, or if he just didn't care, but it was evident to me that he expected me to help simply because it was the moral thing to do. He depicted me as a monster for not immediately going to her rescue. I told him I couldn't help, and that the matter was between her, my brother, and my family, not me. But he didn't hear it. He accused me of being stubborn, carrying grudges, and neglecting this child's needs. He made it sound as if I was abandoning someone who was obviously in need. But here's the thing. She's not the only person in need. I spent so many years in this toxic environment, dealing with everyone else's problems, but never my own. I am done with that. I quickly stopped the call, but it only made me feel more conflicted. I wanted to defend myself and explain why I wasn't going to get involved, but I didn't. I understand it is not my obligation to clean up this mess. I understand she and her family made their decisions, and they now have to live with them. But the guilt is still there. No matter how hard I try, it's been difficult to focus on anything else lately. I find myself questioning everything. I went out with some friends the other day to distract myself from the situation, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. One of them even joked that I was being a good Samaritan by not getting involved, which made me laugh. But it wasn't amusing. It only made me feel even more alienated. My buddies don't truly comprehend what I'm going through. The few friends I have left from my old life are either too afraid to speak up or simply believe I am doing the right thing. However, it does not feel right, especially when a child is involved. I've also been thinking about how my ex-fiance's situation could worsen if my brother and parents continue to press for full custody. I'm honestly not sure what could happen. My family has always been adept at manipulating the system, and I've witnessed them do so previously. I'm concerned that the youngster will be placed in a circumstance that is as horrible, if not worse, than what he is now suffering with. Despite these sentiments, I can't bring myself to get personally involved, so I am still stuck. Part of me continues thinking that remaining out of it is the proper decision, but another part of me is questioning if I'm making the wrong decision. Will I live in regret if I don't help? And if I do help, would it only lead me back into their toxic world? This is a no-win situation. What would you do in my shoes? Would you aid the child, even if it meant reconnecting with your poisonous family again? Or would you keep your distance and let them sort things out for themselves? Update 3. After reading more of your comments and reflecting on the situation, I realized I couldn't sit back and do nothing for the sake of the child. While I owe nothing to my ex-fiancé or my family, I understood that the child did not choose to be born into this situation. He is innocent. And if I have the means to help him escape the toxic environment that my brother and family have created, I should try. But I also realized that if I was going to do something, I needed to keep my peace in the process. I will not let them take me back into their world. I've worked too hard to rebuild my life and set boundaries, and I'm not going to give it all up for something out of my control. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Eventually, I came up with what I thought was the best compromise. I submitted an anonymous report to Child Protective Services, CPS. At first, I was unsure whether this was the proper decision, but as I thought about it more, it seemed evident that this was the only way I could possibly help without getting dragged back into the pandemonium. One evening, I sat down with all of the information I had. What my ex-fiancé had told me about my brother's behavior, how my parents treated her, and how toxic and manipulative the family dynamic had always been. I added all pertinent detail I could think of. I didn't simply talk about the physical and mental trauma my ex-fiancé had experienced. I also discussed how my brother's dominating behavior had impacted everyone around him, particularly her. I detailed how he had always used his charm to trick everybody, including my parents, into turning a blind eye to what he did. I made sure to explain how my parents had always supported him, making excuses for him and putting me aside in the process. I realized that if CPS was to investigate the incident, they would need to grasp the entire context of the child's surroundings. My brother's behavior was not the only issue. My family had always opted to enable his acts rather than hold him accountable. I also attached screenshots of some of the emails my ex-fiancé sent me. She had expressed her fear for herself and the child, her sense of being imprisoned in the marriage, and her lack of a support system. I knew I didn't have first-hand evidence of abuse against the child, but I hoped CPS would find enough in what I presented to launch an investigation. They might not be able to locate enough to intervene, but they would at least be aware of the situation. I needed to know that someone was watching out for the child, even if it wasn't me. Filing that report felt like a weight was lifted off my chest. It was the proper thing to do, but I didn't have to return to the craziness of my old life. I informed CPS that I wanted to remain anonymous and did not want to be contacted for follow-ups or participate in the case in any way. I did not want my name mentioned. I just wanted to make sure the kid was secure. And I felt if CPS thought my report had merit, they'd look into it further without my involvement. I did not expect immediate feedback or closure. CPS was unlikely to provide me with updates, and if they did, it would most likely be after they had done an inquiry. I was at ease knowing that I had done everything I could. I didn't have to reopen old wounds from my family's dysfunction, nor did I have to get caught up in their drama. At the end of the day, the report was the most effective thing I could do without jeopardizing my mental health, or the life I'd worked so hard to rebuild. In the days that followed, I attempted to concentrate on moving forward, which is easier said than done. My family is relentless, and every time I think they'll leave me alone, another message or email appears. This time, it wasn't simply my mother and a distant cousin. This time, my brother reached out, and honestly, I didn't know how to answer. He sent me a short email accusing me of betraying the family and acting vindictively. He told me I was making a major mistake and would regret it. But there was something else about the tone of the message that made me pause for a moment. It wasn't simply anger. He was concerned. I did not even bother responding. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that everything he said was pure manipulation. It was not about him. It was about control. And I wasn't about to fall for it again. I've done this song and dance previously. It is always the same. They try to make me feel awful about setting boundaries and doing the right thing. But in the end, they're the ones who caused this mess. I don't owe them an explanation anymore for anything. I hadn't heard from my ex-fiancée in a few days, which was a relief until yesterday when I received one final email from her. It was short. Just a simple message that read, "Thank you, and I'm sorry for what I put you through." There are no details, no explanations, only those words. It left me with mixed emotions. On the one hand, I'm relieved she acknowledged the pain she caused. But on the other hand, it made me realize how much she is going through. Perhaps something has changed in her situation, or she is finally recognizing the truth of her predicament. Regardless, it's evident that she's still battling. I don't know what will happen next in her custody struggle, but if there's even a slim chance she can get the child out of that harmful atmosphere, I hope it goes well for her. But I have to tell myself that I cannot get back engaged. I can't solve her problems, and I've already contributed significantly. Now it is up to the authorities. If CPS investigates and finds sufficient evidence to act, I will have done my part. If not, I'll have to admit that I can't control everything no matter how much I want to. Final update. Thank you to everyone who has provided advice, encouragement, and even tough love. Your words helped me understand the big picture and gave me the confidence to act without second-guessing myself. And to anyone reading this who may be in a similar situation, it's okay to keep your peace. You can care for others while still maintaining your boundaries. Doing the right thing can sometimes entail taking a step back and allowing the system to work. You don't have to repair everything yourself. Do what you can, and leave the rest to people who are more qualified to manage it. I'm not sure what will happen next with my ex-fiancé, my brother, or any of this mess. But I know one thing. Whatever happens, I will be fine. My mom and sister made me reject my dream job to support them. But I later discovered that my mom had illegally drained the college funds Dad left. Have you ever felt like your own family is purposely sabotaging your future? That is exactly what I, 22, am struggling with right now. My mother, 45, and sister, 19, recently pushed me to turn down a fantastic job offer at a major tech company in San Jose, and I'm still trying to absorb what happened. Let me paint you a picture of how we arrived here. 2 years ago, my father died in a vehicle accident on his way home from work. He was the type of father who never missed any of my coding competitions or academic events, even when he was overburdened with work. Every Sunday morning, we had this custom where he'd cook his famous pancakes, which were simply regular pancakes with chocolate chips. But he was so proud of them. He'd tell us stories from his college days while flipping them and cracking us up with his bad dad jokes. Prior to the accident, our family life was not perfect, but it was stable. My parents had troubles, as do all couples, but they balanced each other out nicely. Dad was the calm, analytical kind who could settle any issue with his careful reasoning, whereas Mom was more emotional and impetuous. They made it work, and our home felt secure and predictable. Everything changed following Dad's death. It wasn't simply the evident loss. It was as if our entire family dynamic had collapsed. Mom became emotionally dependent on my younger sister Ashley, or perhaps the other way around. Regardless, they created a tight, even smothering bond that made me feel like an alien in my own family. Ashley became the focus of Mom's universe, while I was consigned to the role of the responsible one, expected to give up everything for the family's sake. I should clarify about Ashley. Even before Dad died, she was always the most theatrical member of the family. I was the quiet kid who spent hours coding in my room, while she was the social butterfly who required constant attention. Dad used to balance Mom's tendency to accommodate Ashley's every desire. But now he was gone. There was no one to provide a reality check. Their relationship evolved gradually but unmistakably. Ashley's little crises escalated into family emergencies. When she didn't make the cheerleading squad in her senior year of high school, her mother let her miss school for a week and maxed up her credit card with comfort items. When she didn't get into her first choice institution, Mom spent 2 weeks calling administrators and even applying for a loan to make a donation to the school. Meanwhile, the first tried to keep everything together. I maintained a 4.0 GPA in computer science, worked part-time at the university's IT department to help pay bills, and cared for my younger brother, Tommy, 10 million. Tommy is such a sweet kid. He's the only one who still sees me as a real person, rather than a tool to be utilized when necessary. I graduated from college this year with a computer science degree, and against all chances, I received an incredible job offer from one of San Jose's top businesses. The interview process was harsh, with 6 rounds of technical interviews, coding challenges, and behavioral tests. I prepared for months, staying up late to learn algorithms and data structures, while also fulfilling my family responsibilities. When I received the offer letter, I couldn't believe my eyes. The base salary was $125,000 plus a signing bonus and stock options that made my head spin. This wasn't simply a job. It was an opportunity to establish a legitimate career and possibly even aid my family financially. Once I was established, I could finally repay all of my student loans, which Mom couldn't co-sign for because she was too busy paying off Ashley's shopping bills. But last week, Mom entered my room with that expression on her face, as if she were going to explode a bomb that would destroy everything. She sat on my bed, took up the plush penguin Dad bought me for my 16th birthday, one of the few things I still have from him, and said, "Olivia, we need to talk about your job offer." My stomach immediately sank. She went on to tell me that Ashley was struggling with her first year of college and needed to take a vacation. She apparently has anxiety and needs to return home. This entails additional expenses, which Mom cannot handle alone. She advised me to ignore the San Jose offer and seek a local job instead, so that I could help with the finances and care for Tommy. Ashley's worry manifests itself mysteriously when things don't go her way. She had no issue performing in a 3-hour dance showcase last month, but when her teachers required her to attend morning courses, She experienced crippling social anxiety. She can spend hours at parties with her friends, documenting every second to Instagram. Yet, she supposedly has panic attacks when it comes time to study for tests. I tried to reason with Mom. I spent hours showing her my financial plans, explaining how I would send money home once I had settled in, and even promising to assist Ashley in finding resources for her purported mental health difficulties. But Mom would not hear it. Family comes first, she kept stressing, as if my desires and goals were not important to the family's well-being. What is the worst part? While I was talking with Mom, Ashley was in her room, sharing images of her recent shopping trip on Instagram. The same sibling who claims she is too anxious to continue college spent hundreds of dollars on new clothes and makeup. I saw the receipts in her email. Yes, we have a family computer. She spent $876 at Sephora last week. That's more than I've spent on groceries in 2 months. When I pointed this up to Mom, she became defensive. Ashley is sensitive. She needs these things to feel better, she told me. You've always been the strong one, Olivia. You can handle disappointment better. That's when it struck me. I was the strong one in this family, which meant that my feelings and dreams were irrelevant. The following days were a flurry of anxiety and desperate planning. I contacted my college advisor, who was outraged by the scenario, but couldn't provide much assistance. I called the company's HR department to explain my predicament and request additional time, but they could only extend the deadline by a few days. Without family assistance or a co-signer for an apartment contract in San Jose, my options were quickly dwindling. I even attempted to appeal to Mom's sensible side. I produced a detailed spreadsheet demonstrating how my San Jose salary will benefit the family more in the long run than a local job paying half the amount. I looked for local therapists that could help Ashley cope with her anxiety while still allowing her to attend school. I volunteered to schedule regular video conversations with Tommy to keep involved in his life. Nothing worked. How did Mom respond? Your father would be so disappointed in you for being so selfish. It stung more than anything else. Dad was the one who bought my first computer, stayed up late to help me debug my first programs, and always encouraged me to dream big. Using his memory to control me seemed like a new low. That's when something unexpected occurred. My Uncle James, 42 million, Dad's younger brother, arrived abruptly at our doorstep yesterday. He's always been the cool uncle who pays attention. But we hadn't seen much of him since Dad's burial. He'd apparently been trying to call Mom for weeks, but she was ignoring him. He looked at my face and knew something was amiss. While Mom was preoccupied with Ashley's current crisis, she was crying because someone had unfollowed her on Instagram. Uncle James and I sat on the back porch, where Dad used to educate me about constellations on clear evenings. I told him everything. I told him about the job offer, Mom's demands, Ashley's spending habits, and how I felt as if my future was slipping away. Tommy came out to join us as I was speaking, cuddling up next to me as he often does when he notices I'm angry. He's incredibly perceptive for a 10-year-old. Tommy acquired Dad's quiet brilliance and empathy, whilst Ashley inherited Mom's dramatic tendencies. Since Dad's death, he has been my primary source of genuine affection in this house. Instead of simply sympathizing, Uncle James had a determined expression in his eyes, similar to how Dad would appear when he was solving a problem. Your dad would never have wanted this for you, he replied, his voice firm but gentle. Then he made me an offer that would change everything. He has a guest home near his business in a city about an hour from San Jose, and he's prepared to let me stay there for free until I get established. He even offered to co-sign any required loans. While we were conversing, I received a text from my probable future manager at the IT company. She stated she was impressed with my interviews and was excited to have me on the team. They are working on several cutting-edge AI initiatives that are completely aligned with my interests. Reading that message while sitting next to the lone adult who seemed to care about my future felt like the universe was sending me a signal. For the first time in weeks, I felt hopeful. However, when we informed Mom about this possibility, she exploded. The transition was sudden and frightening. She transformed from the passive-aggressive manipulator I had become accustomed to into someone I hardly knew. She accused me of leaving my family, called me selfish, and then dropped a bombshell I didn't see coming. You're just like your father, always putting yourself first. Uncle James intervened quickly, telling Mom she was out of line. He reminded her that Dad had worked tirelessly to support this family, that he had taken the late shift at work, the one he was driving home from when the tragedy occurred, in order to pay for Ashley's dance lessons. The fight that followed was heated, with Ashley joining in to call me selfish, and Tommy crying in the corner. The things Mom said during that dispute indicated a lot about how she truly regards me. Apparently, I was always difficult, even as a child. My concentrate on academics rather than socializing was unusual. Even my decision to study computer technology rather than something more suitable for a girl was indicative of my defiance. It seemed as if years of animosity had finally been released. I'm currently sitting in my room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Uncle James demanded I begin packing just in case, and I'm now trying to figure out what to do next. On one side of my laptop screen, there is a job offer letter, and on the other, there are San Jose apartment ads. The deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Uncle James is downstairs, ready to assist me if I decide to move out. But Mom's warning to cut me off completely if I leave still rings in my ears. Tommy left a note under my door a few minutes ago. In his shaky handwriting, he wrote, "I love you, Olivia. Dad would want you to be happy." I'm trying not to cry on the page while I type this. I realize this is long, but I needed to get it out. I understand that this is tricky, but am I wrong in wanting to take advantage of this opportunity? Should I give up my work to keep the family at peace? Or should I accept Uncle James' offer and risk ruining my connection with Mom and Ashley? I've spent my entire life being responsible, dependable, and willing to make sacrifices. For once, I'd like to select myself, but my guilt is eating me alive. What if Mom is correct? What if I'm being selfish? I will provide an update after I have reached a decision. My hands are shaking so terribly that I can hardly type this. Thank you for reading. If you've made it this far, any advice is welcome. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd want to thank everyone who left positive comments on my previous post. Your remarks provided me the strength to make a decision. I chose to accept the job offer and seek Uncle James' assistance. But what occurred next completely surprised me. The morning after I made my decision, I got up early to begin transferring my belongings. Mom and Ashley weren't talking to me as I expected. I didn't expect to see my laptop missing from my desk. Following a frenzied hunt, I discovered it in Ashley's room. She attempted to send an email denying my employment offer from my account. Thankfully, she was unaware of the two-factor authentication I had set up. When confronted, Mom defended her. Ashley was just trying to protect our family. That was the moment I knew I had made the correct decision. Uncle James helped me load everything into his vehicle, while Mom and Ashley watched from the window, not even coming down to say goodbye. Only Tommy ran out to hug me, putting his favorite action figure in my pocket, and murmuring, "For good luck." The drive to Uncle James' house was relatively peaceful. He didn't force me to communicate, just let me analyze everything, while my favorite indie rock station played softly in the background. It reminded me of drives I used to take with Dad to clear my mind. Getting situated in the guest house was weird. It's little, but ideal for me. A studio with a tiny kitchen and a workstation by the window. Uncle James had already set up a workstation for me, complete with 2 monitors. "Your dad would have wanted you to have the right setup," he told me. The true shock occurred as I was organizing my documents for the new employment. I discovered an old envelope in Dad's work briefcase that Uncle James had kept in storage. Inside were letters from Dad to each of us kids, intended to be opened when we turned 25. I know I shouldn't have opened mine so early, but with everything going on, I needed some connection with him. The letter altered everything. Dad described his own experiences with family pressure. When he was younger, his parents wanted him to take over their modest business, but he chose to study engineering instead. He wrote about how happy he was of my interest in technology, and hoped I'd have the fortitude to pursue my aspirations, even if it meant making difficult decisions. But there was something else in the envelope. Bank statements indicating that Dad had established a separate savings account for my college tuition. I'd never known about this account. It had enough money to cover at least 2 years' tuition. When I showed these to Uncle James, his expression worsened. He made several calls and discovered that Mom had somehow gotten access to this account after Dad died and fully depleted it. I started a new job yesterday. The staff is great, and the projects are even more exciting than I anticipated. My boss personally led me around and introduced me to everyone. During lunch, she mentioned that she had been pulling for me since my interview, especially when I solved a particularly difficult coding problem in an unusual manner. Mom has been phoning nonstop since I left, leaving voicemails alternating between guilt and rage. Ashley wrote a lengthy diatribe on social media about how I had abandoned the family. I've blocked them both for now. I need room to concentrate on my fresh beginning. Uncle James helped me open a separate bank account from Mom's, and I'm learning about financial independence from a coworker who also offers personal finance classes. I am also looking at therapy choices that are covered by my new health insurance. The toughest part is missing Tommy. We video chat every night before his bedtime, while Mom attends her evening yoga session. He had been telling me about his science project, and his eyes brightened up when I offered to help him code a simple game for it. I keep rereading Dad's letter anytime I'm feeling guilty. One line in particular stands out. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose your own path, even when others try to hold you back out of their own fear. There's more to look into with the Education Fund, and Uncle James is assisting me in gathering information. I'll provide another update once I have more information. For the time being, I'm focusing on learning my new work and creating my new life, one day at a time. Update number 2. It has been 3 weeks since my previous update. I regret for the delay, but what I discovered necessitated thorough investigation and legal consulting before I felt safe publishing. Remember the college fund that I mentioned, discovering in Dad's papers? Uncle James and I have spent the past few weeks trying to figure out what happened to that money. What we discovered was far worse than we had feared. With the help of Dad's old bank colleague, we discovered that Mom had not only accessed one account, but had systematically depleted multiple accounts Dad had set up. There was a college fund for me, another for Tommy's future schooling, and a general emergency fund. All were emptied within months, following Dad's death. Last week, Mom sent me a lengthy email. She sought to get ahead of the narrative, indicating that she was aware we were investigating. The email began with a half-hearted apology for possibly being too harsh, but gradually evolved into something else entirely. She left a message. There's something you need to know about your father. When I was pregnant with you, he had an affair. The note went on to explain how she uncovered the affair, how Dad begged forgiveness, and how she graciously accepted him back. She said that this was why she was always aloof from me, because I reminded her of that difficult time. She concluded by offering that, if I discontinued my research into the accounts, we could focus on repairing our relationship. Here's the thing, her story didn't add up. Uncle James and I dug through Dad's old records and discovered something unusual. While Mom alleged Dad was having an affair, he was actually working double shifts to pay off Mom's credit card debt. We discovered old credit card statements with enormous charges from that time period, all made by Mom. The major surprise occurred when we realized Dad's old email address was still operational. We discovered years of correspondence with his lawyer discussing his concerns about Mom's spending habits. He had been recording everything, safeguarding valuables and opening separate accounts for his children's future. He was not having an affair. He was attempting to shield us from Mom's fiscal carelessness. The emails also revealed something heartbreaking. Dad had planned to leave Mom, not for another woman, but because he was concerned about her influence on the kids. The accident occurred only 2 weeks before he planned to file for divorce. I took all of this material to the lawyer that Uncle James recommended. She was appalled. Apparently, what Mom did with the accounts following Dad's death was not only immoral, but unlawful. She had fabricated documents to obtain access to accounts that she was not permitted to touch. The lawyer discovered something else concerning Ashley's alleged college fees, which Mom had stated as the reason she required my assistance. The majority of that money went toward shopping sprees and luxury things. We discovered credit card bills indicating purchases at high-end retailers, spa treatments, and even a secret spring break trip to Cancun, all while Ashley was allegedly too anxious to attend lectures. I spent hours scrolling through Ashley's social media posts, chronicling every extravagant purchase, luxury vacation, and shopping spree. The time frame coincides exactly with the loss of monies from Dad's accounts. Mom wasn't just allowing Ashley's behavior. She was sponsoring it with money that was legally intended for all of us. The lawyer claims we have a good case of financial fraud. The data left by Dad, together with the paper trail of Mom's activities following his death, creates a clear picture of systematic theft and deception. Tommy's predicament is what concerns me the most right now. He's still living in that toxic environment, seeing Mom and Ashley spend money that should have gone for his future. Uncle James is exploring our options for obtaining custody. The lawyer believes we may have a case, particularly given the financial malfeasance. I have not responded to Mom's email yet. The lawyer advised against any direct communication at this time. But Mom and Ashley must have sensed something is amiss, because they've launched a social media smear campaign against me, portraying me as an ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family for a high-paying tech career. The truth is that learning of Dad's impending divorce has been both painful and validating. Painful because Dad died before he could shield us from Mom's destructive actions. Validating because it proves he witnessed what was going on. He was not immune to Mom's manipulation and financial abuse. He was actively attempting to stop it. I'm preparing all of the documentation for legal action. Uncle James has been great throughout this process, spending countless hours assisting me in building our case. My employment is going well, and my team has been understanding of my need for occasional personal time to deal with things. The coming weeks will be critical as we move forward with legal processes. I'll post another update when I can, but for the time being, I need to focus on constructing our case and staying emotionally healthy through it all. My company's health insurance provides therapy, so I started seeing someone to help me digest things. At least I now know the truth. Dad was not the villain in Mom's story. He tried to be our hero to the end. Update 3. The previous 6 weeks have been a blur of legal proceedings, life changes, and final decisions. What began with discovering Dad's buried letter has resulted in a full overhaul of our lives. The court case moved quickly, thanks to the tremendous evidence we had. The judge was particularly concerned about Mom's methodical depletion of Tommy's education money. The most incriminating evidence came from Mom's scrupulous record-keeping. She had documented every unlawful transfer in her personal planner, most likely never expecting anyone to discover it. When Mom was presented with the evidence in court, her veneer finally shattered. She admitted to everything: forging paperwork to get into Dad's finances, misusing the insurance funds, systematically concealing financial records. The judge's decision was straightforward: full restoration of all diverted cash, plus interest. Mom is currently facing criminal charges for fraud. Ashley's reaction was revealing. Instead of supporting Mom, she quickly distanced herself, claiming she had no idea where the money for her shopping spree came from. Her Instagram influencer hopes were dashed when the court ordered her to return all products purchased with misappropriated monies. The biggest success, however, was not a financial settlement, it was gaining custody of Tommy. When the judge recognized Mom's record of financial abuse and manipulation, as well as evidence of her continuous destructive conduct, she granted me interim custody, with Uncle James serving as co-guardian. Tommy moved in with me last week, and the difference is already evident. He's smiling more, sleeping better, and is enthused about the coding projects we're working on together. My career has accelerated in ways I never expected. My initiative has piqued the interest of high management, and I have been elevated to team leader. The steadiness of my employment and income played a crucial role in the custody decision. Mom made one final attempt at manipulation, vowing to forgive everything provided. I dropped the accusations and returned Tommy. Her lawyer instructed her to stop when I provided recordings of her threatening phone calls. Ashley has been posting passive-aggressive posts about toxic family members and treachery, but her power has diminished since she was forced to return her costly outfit. She's moved in with a friend, refusing to live with Mom now that the money has run out. Uncle James has been my rock throughout this. He's helped Tommy set up his new room, located him a terrific school nearby, and even opened a new college fund for him, which Mom can't access. We have weekly family dinners where we talk about Dad's pleasant memories, which are slowly healing after years of manipulation. The guest house has become our home. Tommy's room is filled in science posters and programming flowcharts that we created together. He's joined a robotics club at his new school, and his passion reminds me of Dad. I started therapy to analyze everything, and it's helping me realize that none of this was my fault. Dad tried to protect us, and now I'm completing what he started. Looking back at my initial post, I can't believe how far we've come from nearly giving up on my aspirations to now completely realizing them while providing Tommy with the secure home he deserves. Mother and Ashley's true colors were shown, but by losing them, we gained something far more valuable: truth and freedom. To those who may be in similar situations, believe your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. Sometimes the family you choose is more significant than the one you are born into. Thank you for giving me the courage to research while my world was collapsing. Your encouragement gave me the courage to fight for justice, not just for myself, but for Tommy and Dad's memory. You transformed our life. My family and I were excluded from our longtime friend's annual trip because my son is autistic. What should I do? Original post. 5 years ago, my childhood best friend, 44/male, invited me, my wife, 41/female, and our son on a week-long trip to California with his family and 3 of his college work friends, 42 to 45/male, and their families. I'd met them before and we all got on well enough, so I agreed to it. They knew that my son was autistic before they invited us and were fine with it apparently. The first year we went, my son had a really hard time adjusting, but got better as time went on. Although he did have a few meltdowns, but everyone acted like it was fine, and that they understood, and continued to invite us on the trip, and things usually went like that. Earlier this week, my friend said that they wanted to discuss the trip, and I too wanted to discuss the trip, because of some concerns I had. Mainly one of my friend's teenage daughters who was extremely rude to my son. So I agreed, and when I got there, things were really awkward. No one really said anything. And finally, one of the guys just said that they and their families had decided that it would probably be best if we, my family, didn't go on the trip this year. I was completely blindsided, and of course asked why, and none of them would come right out and say it directly. But they slyly said it was because of my son. They said that this year, since it was vacation, they wanted to be able to truly relax, and for the past few years, they haven't been able to. They also said that this year they really wanted some adult time, since they haven't had any the last few years. Whenever my wife and I went out, our son would have to come too, because no one would stay with him. And quite frankly, I didn't trust any of the other kids to stay with him. And he had a meltdown once at a restaurant. Their final reason was that some of their kids were uncomfortable. We rent a big house out there, and felt unsafe staying in the house, because of one instance where my son did get a little out of hand. One time out of the 4 years. So I did understand that part a bit. Like I said, they never came right out and said it was because of my son, but I knew, and it really hurt. This trip is the only time my wife and I ever get away, and they knew that. I think it's pretty sad that a group of adults can't see past a few inconveniences and annoyances from a child who can't help it for a few days. But I know it's a little different to me because I deal with it all of the time. Overall, I'm just angry, hurt, and confused, as is my wife, by all of this because they are supposed to be my friends, and I thought they understood everything. I feel like I'm ready to cut ties with all of them and not look back. But my wife thinks that I should tell them all how I truly felt about the situation, so that they won't just think it's okay to do that to anyone. I don't really know what I'm asking. Whether I'm overreacting. I truly don't think I am. Or whether I should just end the friendship now, or talk to them first. TLDR. Friends excluded me and my family from our annual trip, because my son has autism. I just want to cut them off and be done with it. But my wife thinks I should talk to them, and tell them just how unacceptable that is. Top comment. You have every right to feel hurt, because we can't control the hands we're dealt. However, I'm inclined to say that your friends do have a valid point. An autistic child is a lot to deal with, and not everyone is able to do it. Your point of view is people should accept him because he can't help it, because he's your child, and you're used to it. Imagine it from the other point of view. They see it as a child who can randomly go off at any moment, whether he can help it or not. It doesn't matter if it's caused by a disease or just a hyperactive child. They see the potential meltdowns as uncomfortable and awkward. Pretend it wasn't your child. Pretend one of your friend's children has ADHD. His family wants to go on vacation because they're used to it and have learned to tune down his yelling. Would you want to go out with him, constantly yelling and making people uncomfortable? Could your friends have been more straightforward in their approach? Yes. At the end of the day, they did a cost-benefit analysis and figured it was better to have peace of mind for their kids and them, and decided to cut you. I recommend planning a vacation with your son. There's no reason why y'all can't have a great time as a family somewhere. Update. After thinking hard about it, I decided that I would talk to my friends about everything that happened. We decided to meet again and talk it out. They said that they understood why I was hurt, but weren't even planning on budging in anyway. There was no hesitation this time, and one of them, the one with the rude daughter, told me straight out that being around my son was way too stressful and risky, and that this year they refused to constantly walk on eggshells and put their kids at risk for my family's sake. We were never the closest, but I still thought we were friendly enough acquaintances to be respectful to one another. But I guess not. And in the moment, we did get into a bit of heated argument, and basically nothing got resolved. But my childhood friend did tell me that he doesn't want this to end our friendship, and that maybe next year we could all work something out. But quite frankly, I don't really want to go on a trip with any of them, and I left. My wife, when I got home, was happy that I talked to them, but upset that I even considered trying to come up with a solution to go on a trip where we would not even be wanted, which I understand. As far as my friendship with those guys, I'm not sure where it stands, and if we don't talk in the future, it won't bother me too bad, since they feel the way they do. I know that a lot of people disagree with me, but if you can't accept my child, then you can't accept me, especially when he's so dependent on me. I am a little disappointed because I thought we were all friends, but maybe it's for the best. TLDR. I talked to my friends, and things didn't go well, but that may be for the best. Top comments. Comment 1. Everyone in your last post said this is how they probably felt and have a right to feel. Almost to the letter. They feel like they have to walk on eggshells. Do you think they should be made to feel like that on their vacation? You feel like they're rejecting your family, and you have a right to feel that way. But it seems like you still haven't looked at the other side of the coin. Comment 2. Your friends don't owe you a vacation. You're demonizing them as if they don't like you or your kid. and you feel that they should accept your son without reservations, because his misbehavior is part of his disability. Vacations are not supposed to be stressful, and your son adds stress to their vacation. They are in no way obligated to deal with that. You are, because he is your kid. And guess what? They tried for 4 years to accept the situation and see it from your end. What have you tried? After my fiance's shocking comment about my late wife at family dinner, I'm questioning our engagement to protect my kids. For background, I am 43 and had 2 children, Sam, 21M, and Liz, 16F, with my late wife, Kayla. Our children were 10 and 15 when Kayla died. I won't go into details, but she was hit by an intoxicated driver on her way home from work. She was the true love of my life, and our family was devastated by her departure. For the benefit of my children, I made a self-promise to wait at least a few years before dating again. I met Amanda, who is now my fiancée, 3 years after Kayla's death. We took our time, and it wasn't until we had been dating for a year or so that I introduced her to my children. We are now engaged after 3 years of dating. Although they are not particularly close, Amanda and my children get along well and show each other respect. Amanda has never gone too far or attempted to take their mother's place. When we first started dating, Amanda was a little insecure about my being a widower. She frequently asked me if I would still be with Kayla if she hadn't died during those initial months. She finally stopped bringing up the what-ifs when I reminded her that I didn't like to think about them, and kept my responses succinct. Let's get to the problem. Recently, my parents celebrated our engagement with a family supper. My parents, my late wife's sister and her husband, my 2 children, Amanda, and I were all present. With everyone engaging in small talk and talking about their wedding plans, the dinner was going well. About halfway through, my mother commented on how pleased she was that, like Kayla, I had discovered a fresh spark with someone else. Until Amanda chuckled and remarked, "I'm glad she died. Otherwise, I would have never gotten into myself." I don't think anyone gave much thought to the sincere remark. The dinner's atmosphere instantly changed. Everyone, especially my children, grew tense. As though it were a joke, Amanda appeared to notice the abrupt change and made an embarrassing attempt to laugh it off. Since that was the first time she had ever said something like that, I was really completely frozen. Liz stood up and walked out to the car, while my children stared in horror. I was still in shock, but Sam lingered a little longer, as though he was waiting for me to speak. In other words, the supper was essentially spoiled. We all headed home after I hastily bid farewell to everyone and gathered Amanda. 3 days have passed since my daughter last spoke to Amanda, or me. I asked my kid what he felt I should do, because I was getting sick of the silence. As an adult, I don't care who another adult marries, but I don't want a woman who talks like that about our mother around my sister, he told me. His remark lingered with me, and I'm now thinking about ending the engagement. Although she has never said anything like this before, I'm concerned that if I ignore it this once, it will happen more often and have an impact on my daughter. I just want to do what's good for my kids. Therefore, I need some outside input. What if her remark caused me to call off our engagement? Edit. Whoa. After posting this, I never thought I'd receive that much advice so fast. I appreciate all of your comments, including those who referred to me as a bad father. I believe that what you said helped me get my head out of the sand. Before talking to my fiancée tonight, I'll attempt to have a private conversation with my kids. We'll see where it goes from there. However, I believe that my fiancée and I are no longer together. I'll provide an update on the progress of the conversations with everyone later tonight or tomorrow. Again, I want to thank you all for helping me to straighten out. Edit 2. I attempted to amend this post, but it was not accepted. First update. During the dinner party, did my fiancée apologize to anyone? No. She didn't. To be honest, I don't think she even realized or has realized that what she said was incorrect. 2. Is social anxiety a problem for my fiancée? I'm not aware of it. She has never displayed symptoms of social anxiety in the time I've known her, and she has no past history of the condition. 3. What was my late wife's age? We were the same age as Kayla, who was 37 when she went away. Amanda is 41 years old now. Many people wanted to know when Amanda and I first met, as well as the timing of Kayla's death. I met Amanda around 3 years after Kayla's death, and she has now been gone for about 6 years. I didn't initially bring up their ages since I didn't think it was important, but I can see why others might be interested. Here's the complete update. Now that I've answered the most common queries I received, the day after I spoke with my children, I am writing this update. Since my fiancée works evenings most days of the week, she departed for work at approximately 05:30 last night. I called my son and asked if he could come over and chat with his sister and me. He lives in an apartment close to his school and attends a nearby college. He chose to live a few blocks from campus when he started college because he wanted to move out yet still be near us. I called him and his sister into the living room to speak when he got there. After they were both seated, I bluntly informed them that I no longer believed the wedding was going to take place and that Amanda's remark was inappropriate. I apologized to them, as I was advised to do here. I apologized to them for allowing the stress to rise in our home and for not dealing with it sooner. I told my daughter that I understood why she hadn't contacted me and that I was sorry for letting her believe that I approved of anything Amanda said. After we got back from that dinner, I felt quite cowardly and wanted to do everything in my power to mend my relationship with my children. My daughter told me throughout the conversation that she was outraged by Amanda's remark, and I was much more offended when I didn't instantly stand up for her mother. She went on to say that for the 2 years she has known Amanda, she has sensed that she has been attempting to gradually distance herself and Sam from me. Liz used the time my son moved out to begin his sophomore year of college as an example. Amanda was the one who jumped at the chance to move out when he brought it up. Liz claims that the person who encouraged Sam to move out the most was Amanda. To be clear, I never opposed Sam leaving home, but I did let him know that he was free to stay at home while he was in college, and even after that, until he found a place that suited him. I questioned Sam about if he moved out because he felt pushed out by Amanda. He claimed that before telling everyone he intended to move, he hadn't felt pressured. But after he made the announcement, my fiancé persisted in pressuring him to do so. Every time she mentions college, Amanda keeps pushing her to go out of state. Liz interrupted. Liz has made it clear that she wants to attend the institution Sam is now enrolled in and has no plans to go out of state. According to Liz, Amanda seems to be waiting for her to graduate from high school and enroll in college so that she may move out as well. Many of the comments were correct when they said that Amanda's subtle remarks eventually led to her attempting to drive my children away from me. Liz expressed her concern that too much damage would have been done between us by the time I finally realized how Amanda was acting. I apologized to my children for the delay in my realization and for making them walk on eggshells for so long. I gave them a hug and told them that they are my first concern, not Amanda or anybody else. I made sure to let Sam know that I will always be there for him and his sister, even when they are far into adulthood, because several comments mentioned that my kid still needs his father even though he is grown. About 2 hours passed during the entire chat. It was emotional for all of us, and we covered a lot of terrain. To put it briefly, Amanda and I are finished. I've made it a point to explain to my children that Amanda, as an adult, is accountable for her words, and that none of this is their responsibility. Right now, my kids and I are getting along okay, but they haven't completely returned to trusting me, and it's likely that they won't for some time. That's perfectly acceptable to me. All I want is for my children to feel at home. I intend to speak with Amanda tomorrow, as she has the day off from work. In addition, I want to give my mom a call to find out why she felt it was acceptable to bring up Kayla at the dinner. My kid is staying with Sam tonight, and tomorrow night, because I don't want her here when everything goes wrong. I'm not happy with how things turned out with Amanda, but I'd rather have happy, healthy children than a wife again. That's where I am at the moment. I appreciate all of the guidance and even the harsh words, everyone. After I cancel with Amanda, I'll provide another update. Second update. All right, everyone. The long-awaited update is finally here. My kids and I had spoken, made amends, and my daughter was staying with her brother to be clear of the drama surrounding my now ex-fiancé when we last spoke. I called my mom to inform her of the issue before facing the worst portion of the day, breaking it up with Amanda. Many of the comments advised me not to be critical of my mother's remark. After giving it some thought, I understood that my mother's remark about Amanda was meant as a compliment, which was verified when we spoke on the phone. Bless her heart. My mother felt terrible about the whole thing and thought it was all because of her one remark. I reassured her that she had never been held responsible for any of this, and that she was not at all to blame for the circumstances. Before I let her go, we continued our conversation. At approximately 09:15 a.m., the call ended, and I was left to wait for Amanda to awaken. I waited until approximately 11:10 a.m. to see her down for a conversation, because I didn't want to surprise her by waking her up at 10:30 a.m. I had my phone set to record in my back pocket, because many commenters suggested surreptitiously recording the chat, which I thought was a good idea. Although I didn't anticipate her trying anything extreme, it's better to be careful than sorry. The conversation went about as well as you might think. That is, not at all. We sat in the living room after I assured her that we had to talk and that it was serious. As we sat down, I started talking about the remarks she made about Kayla at my parents' house, how it affected my kids, how it made me feel, and why she didn't apologize or acknowledge it. I informed her that I expected her to apologize to my in-laws, parents, and, above all, my children. Amanda didn't show much emotion during my entire conversation, with the exception of her eyes being a little wider than usual. She asked me directly after I was done, so if I apologize to everyone, will we go back to normal? I bluntly told her, no. I clarified that there were other problems besides the remark she made at dinner. She was trying to do the same with Liz, I informed her, and I knew she had put a lot of pressure on Sam to move out when he wasn't even sure about it. Despite my best efforts to keep my children out of it, I told her that the primary reason I no longer saw a future with her was the way my children described how she treated them. Amanda remained mute until I informed her that we were finished. Panic seemed to start at that point. She insisted repeatedly that she would make amends with my children and apologize to everyone. I told her that we were done, even though I would appreciate any apology. By this time, she was crying uncontrollably and asked why I wasn't willing to try to mend our relationship. I told her that although I still loved her, I couldn't risk my children suffering the same kind of harm again. I became irate and questioned her about why she was forcing my children to leave their own house. I was really caught off guard by her reaction, but many commenters were right on the money about who she really is. Well, said Amanda, I had no idea you expected me to spend the rest of my life housing someone else's children. I became enraged. I told her to go after a minute or so. I made it plain that my children could travel anywhere they wanted to, especially in a home that I paid for and owned. After attempting to argue, she packed her luggage and went to stay with a friend. As a precaution, I sent myself a copy of the phone recording via email. I have everything I need to keep my name clear, even though the talk was only around 25 minutes long. not quite as long as the conversation with my kids. I've contacted my kids to let them know that Amanda is permanently gone, to let them know that they may return home at any moment, and to let my son know that he can move back in fully if he wants to. I still have to call my parents and in-laws to apologize for this chaotic scenario. And my daughter is returning from her brother's house in the afternoon. Even when Amanda is not at my house, she keeps calling and urging us to attempt to resolve the issue. She is not welcome to live here again, but I will allow her to visit in the coming days so she may get the other items. To tell the truth, I am a little devastated. I still adore Amanda in spite of everything she did, and I doubt I will for some time to come. But I'll be alright. I just want to utilize this as a chance to strengthen my relationship with my children and concentrate on the family that needs me right now. I want to thank everyone again for your assistance in the comments. Making amends with my family was made possible, in large part, by the guidance you provided. Update 3. To be honest, everything that happened seems like it happened ages ago, which makes me realize how old I am. I'm 44 now. Sam will turn 22 soon, and Liz turned 17 a few months ago. Since I ended my relationship with Amanda, my life has actually been rather calm. I'll briefly review my most recent update, which was posted nearly a year ago. Amanda spent almost a week at her friend's house after our conversation. I used that time to pack up her clothes and other little belongings, as suggested by the comments. I made sure that the only things she needed to come into the house for were the larger items, like chairs and decor. As numerous commenters advised, I also had the locks replaced. I appreciate that you all considered items, like the locks that I had not even considered. After that, I was surprised to find that everything proceeded really swiftly and pleasantly. She stopped by, gathered her belongings, and gave me the ring even though I didn't want it back. It was quiet and we didn't talk much, but that didn't last. She began stalking me on social media a few weeks later, in an attempt to get another shot. Her antics had worn me out by that point, so I blocked her, and my children followed suit. Many critics were right when they said that I didn't truly love her, but rather who I believed she was. It greatly eased the transition. It's been over a year since my kids and I blocked her, and she hasn't spoken since. So I'm sure it will continue to be that way. I've come to the realization that I'm completely content to remain alone for the rest of my life as a result of this entire circumstance. That may be depressing to others, but it's more about acceptance to me. My decision to break up with Amanda helped me realize that I didn't love her as much as I loved Kayla, and I doubt I ever will. Neither I nor anyone I might date would be treated fairly by it. With my family by my side, I'm happy. I now have a greater respect for my children as a result of this event. My love for them has grown even more as a result of their maturity and understanding, something I never thought possible at their age. Sam's flat is still there. He denied my offer to move back in because he truly appreciates having his own bachelor pad, which I can understand because I was in his position once. Since the second semester of this year, he has been doing a part-time job that he truly enjoys. Although I'm not positive, I feel that he might have met someone because I know my child. Liz is enjoying the summer before her final year and is fantastic as always. I'm quite pleased of her because she made the honor roll every year of high school, including this year. When I consider how hardworking and genuinely excellent both of my children are, I find it difficult to keep from boasting. I'm sorry for talking endlessly about them in this post, but I adore them and can't stop talking about them. Other fathers can probably identify. I want to express my gratitude once more to everyone who has been following my story and giving me all of your wonderful advice. Additionally, be aware that I have read your own accounts of such occurrences in the comments. I apologize that many of you lack the network of support that I have been able to provide for my children. I wish I could give all of you gigantic dad hugs for taking the time to share your own tales. I truly appreciate it. Am I the asshole for ending my engagement after my fiancée kept her best friend in the dark about us? Original post. My now ex-fiancée, 30F, and me, N27, got engaged 3 weeks ago. We've been dating for 5 years, and I finally got the money to give her the wedding she wanted. Well, 3 days ago, we were discussing our guest list, and I asked if she wanted to invite her best friend. Let's call him James, 30. James lives in another state, but since they were friends for 10 years, I thought I could even pay for his travel expenses, since it would be great to have her best friend at the wedding. She denied, saying that it would take a lot of work to bring him, and she wanted it to be a family event. Countless times she mentioned that James was like family to her, so I insisted. She got annoyed and said, I didn't even tell him we were engaged. That took me by surprise. I tried to ask why, but she started stonewalling me, and I left her alone. After a couple of hours, I tried to ask her again why she hadn't told him we were engaged, and she still refused to tell me. And I admit, my insecurity got the better of me. In the past, James had confessed he had feelings for her, which she turned down and basically friend-zoned him. But by the way she told me, it always sounded like she had him as a backup, something not only me, but her exes realized. She married him online. They always made their WoW characters look like a couple, like wearing the same transmog and shit like that. When she had a fight with her exes, he was always there for her, and etc. I told her that made me uncomfortable, and if she was not planning to tell him, she might as well consider herself single, because I would not marry someone who couldn't be honest. Yes, I was pretty immature, but she did something even more immature. She texted him while showing me her phone something like, "Hey, just so you know, I was engaged, but not anymore," and sent it to him. I told her to pack her things and leave my house. Ever since she left, she has been calling me, but I refuse to answer. My mom called me because she apparently called my mom and said that I was an asshole for ending things for such a ridiculous thing. So, Ada? Edit. Sorry for the typo. In the title, edit too. Hey guys, I made some dinner, and I think I'm gonna go with u/done over 69 position. Cool username. BTW. I'm gonna ask her to meet up and ask to see their messages. And to you, Foxy Sly Old Stoddy Fox. I'm already in low contact with my mom, but I'm going to make my decisions after I clear everything up. So I'm kinda promising an update. Update. Hey guys. I just got home after talking to my ex-fiancé. And since a lot of people asked for an update, here it is. But I want to clarify a few things. As commented on my original post, I paid for the house since I bought it before dating her, and I asked her to move in since it was close to her job. I work from home since I'm in tech, but she had to go to work. That's why I paid for her car to help her commute. And honestly, her salary is shit. I was her partner, so I didn't see any problem with that. I thought she was the one despite everything. She is smart, funny. We had chemistry, but I felt betrayed. To the update, we met at a coffee shop on the premise we would discuss how to save our relationship. At least that's what she thought. As soon as we sat down, I asked to see their messages. She got defensive immediately and told me she had deleted everything. I asked to see her phone anyway. She started to cry, ugly cry, asking me to stop. At that point, I had already decided I was not going to be part of the relationship anymore. But damn, I was curious. It took a good 20 minutes for her to hand me her phone, a lot of crying, even a waitress asking her if she was okay. So I read the messages. There wasn't any cheating like nudes being exchanged, them professing their love for each other. But what I read still stung. There was a lot of shit talking about me. A lot. Texts and texts of them, saying how terrible of a person I was, criticizing my hobbies, saying I wasn't a real man because of them, and stuff like that. But there were two topics that caught my eye. One where she had told him I was having trouble getting hard, and that was frustrating for her. And one where she was complaining about how she didn't want to be stuck in our relationship. Yes, I was having problems in bed. Because I was sad because my father had passed away 6 months ago, and the stuck thing. I remember telling her that when we got married, if she wanted, she could leave her job, and I would provide for both of us. I don't know if she took this the wrong way, but I guess it was related to that. I honestly don't know. By the time I gave her the phone back, she was already giving excuses on why she was saying those things to him. How he was like a therapist for her. And then she asked me, "Don't you complain about me to your friends?" And I simply replied, "No, I don't." She started crying again. I took a pretty deep breath and just said, "Just give me the ring back." I didn't have the ring with me, like some suggested. She hesitated a bit, but gave it to me anyway. I stood up and asked her to delete my number and to not bother me anymore. I called her mom and asked her to pick up her daughter's stuff at my place. Her mom is a good person. I'm just realizing I'm going to miss her as I write this. She understood why I decided to end it, but she didn't ask much. And to be honest, I'm glad she didn't. As for my mom, I didn't call her. I just blocked her for things unrelated to this post. I just realized she never had my back in anything. I was always trying to save an already failed mom-son relationship. Before I leave, I just want to clarify. I was never against her having male friends, or any type of friends. People are going to cheat, friends or no friends. I remember my dad saying something to me when I was a teenager. He always said opportunity makes the thief. But I do not agree with that. Anyway, since I have the next 2 weeks off work, I'm going to figure out what to do with the wedding money. Drink some booze, play games, and watch Monday Night Raw later. Peace. P.S. Sorry for any typos, but I fixed the title now. Edit. A couple of people are asking about the car. Is a 2015 Nissan Versa, which she crashed 2 times. Both times she rear-ended someone. Never liked the car, weak engine. The interior feels cheap and overall bad, so for all I care, she can keep that piece of shit. I would have more luck throwing it off a cliff than selling it. Edit 2. Little update. Her mom called me a few hours ago to check on me and to ask when she could come and pick up X stuff. We spoke about the car, and she basically forbade me to let her daughter keep the car because 1. I paid for it. 2. X wouldn't be able to maintain it. So I'm going to keep the car until I'm able to sell it. God help me. Also, some people called the story fake because they said I wasn't a real man for playing games, and yet they played WoW. To be honest, that's on me, because I wasn't very clear. The real man thing was more about the pro wrestling hobby than the gaming hobby. But in some messages, they clearly mocked me for playing some games. Life is Strange series. In one, I remember James saying something like, "How could a grown-ass man play such a girly game and cry?" Yes, I cried while playing Life is Strange. I also cried to RDR2. The cutscene still makes me emotional. I'm a crybaby, I guess. Also, I want to thank everyone who messaged me to talk about wrestling and games. It really helped me take my mind out of everything. I haven't replied to everyone, but I intend to. If anything happens, I'll let you guys know. Be good people. Update 2. Hey guys. It's been a couple of days since I used this account to tell my story, and something happened. But this is a positive update. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who reached out to my DMs and commented saying nice things. It felt really good, and I appreciate y'all. Some of you actually made me tear up with your kind messages. Second, I saw my 2 previous posts were in a YT video of a guy who reads Reddit posts, and my update was on our Best Off Redditor updates, a subreddit I read a lot, and that caught me off guard. But I want to express my gratitude for everyone who gave me advice, told their own story, or just told me I was a cool guy. Reading your messages before writing this felt amazing. I also want to say, I thought about my engagement a lot, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Yeah, things ended badly, and she was not a good person to me in the end, but I just don't hate her. Nor do I wish for her to fail. We had good moments. I felt happy with her, and again, I really thought she was the one. Feeling hatred was going to harm me more than her. To the update. Her mom came to pick up her stuff, and we talked for hours. It felt like therapy. I cried on her shoulders. We laughed. She expressed how much I meant to her family, and that I would always be welcome in her home. It felt so good to hear her say those things to me. Before she left, she asked me if I wanted to ask about my ex. I got curious and asked how she was doing. Her words were, "She's trying to act stoic, but I know my daughter. She's not taking this well." I left it at that. She gave me a hug and left. About the car, I'm going to donate it and get a tax write-off. But the thing I'm excited about is that I'm going to the Royal Rumble. I never even watched Raw or SmackDown live, but now that I have the extra cash, I'm going to treat myself. Again, thank you all for reaching out. Sorry to the people who love drama that this update doesn't have an unwanted pregnancy, a fight, chaos, or a plot twist. The truth is that my life is just really, really boring. Be kind, people. Am I the asshole for snapping at my jealous sister during her engagement party, telling her she'll choke on her jealousy one day? Original post. Hi. I'll try to keep it as short as I can. I promise I'll clarify things if there are confusions, and sorry about them in advance. I'm 21F, and I have two siblings. My sister is 24 and engaged. My brother is 28 and married to my sister-in-law, who is 25. My parents hosted a family luncheon to celebrate my sister's engagement at their house. I went early to help them set up my brother and sister-in-law a little bit later than everyone else. My sister and her fiancé arrived last. Everything was going well and everyone was happy until my sister got a text and pulled me aside. She asked me if I could go outside and meet a friend of hers who's going to drop something off for her. I did. The something was a big ball of pure happiness, a St. Bernard dog with a cute little formal tie around his neck. As adorable as he was, I couldn't bring him in because my sister-in-law is allergic. Her allergy is not severe, but still, everyone in the family knows of it. I told the friend to please wait while I talked to my sister. She did not. I texted my sister that I can't bring him inside. She texted that it was fine to bring it in because it's a surprise, and he's the newest addition to the family. I insisted that I couldn't. Then I texted my brother about it because it had been 10 minutes. I'm standing in the driveway with a big doggie that would not stop licking my legs, not knowing what to do. From what I was told inside, my brother pulled my sister aside and asked her not to bring the dog in. That she knows his wife is allergic. She refused, saying that it's an open space, that sister-in-law will be fine. He then told her the news that sister-in-law is pregnant. I already knew, and they were waiting until she passed her first trimester. My sister then went outside, dragged the dog and then me in when I resisted. My brother, seeing this, excused himself and left with sister-in-law. We tried resuming the lunch after that, but it was awkward at best. When my sister and her fiancé cut the cake, she grabbed her glass of champagne to make a toast. The toast was her rambling about how selfish my brother and his wife were, that they couldn't let her have one day to herself, and had to ruin and overshadow it, that they were not the first or last couple to get pregnant. Both of my parents tried to shush her, but she was on a roll, and went on to call sister-in-law an attention seeker that just had to give the family the first grandchild. I finally had enough and told her that green isn't a good look on her, and that she was going to choke on her jealousy one day. Then I got up and left. She called me a bitch on my way out. My mom called me after and told me that it was a bit harsh, even if she was harsher. She also suggested that the three of us, siblings, talk it out after things settle a bit. My dad is staying neutral. I haven't heard from relatives that were at the luncheon. A1TA. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Question. Did your sister also know about the pregnancy, like you did, and pulled the dog's stunt to make sure they left instead of making a public announcement? Like she would have had the roles been reversed. OOP. My sister had no idea about the pregnancy. None of my family did. The only reason I know is because she got sick from the smell of chili cheese fries when we were having a girls' night in. We kind of just looked at each other, and a light bulb went off in our heads. It wasn't like my sister was purposely excluded or anything. And I can confidently say that my brother and sister-in-law would have never hijacked her day to announce their pregnancy. They were planning their own dinner next month to announce it. I assume that's done with, but maybe we can salvage it with a gender reveal if they're up for it. ID she mo. OP's sister dragging her out of the house. My mom has always wanted us to talk our issues out because, at the end of the day, you're siblings. But yeah, that being said, I just want to clarify that even though she dragged me, it didn't take much since I have the smallest stature of my siblings, so she didn't use a lot of force. I did call my brother and sister-in-law right after I got home, and they were good for the most part. They're obviously pissed, but since the news is already out, there's not much that can be done about it. Commenter. She didn't even treat the poor puppy well. The last thing a new puppy needs to deal with is the chaos and overstimulation of a family party. And what did they do with the poor wee bugger while they were cutting the cake and making their pissy speeches? Just leave it outside. Inside to piddle in a corner, because the first few weeks with my pups, they piddled with gay abandon every few minutes. I ended up keeping him company before the cake cutting thing went down. But, yeah, he's not a puppy. If I were to guess, I would say he's maybe 2 years old. I volunteer at a shelter, but I'm definitely not a pro. Commenter. TA. But I'm confused about who the dog was actually for. If the sister is engaged, that means she's going to be leaving home, so is it her dog? If she got a dog for her parents, that's fucking weird to get a big dog for somebody as a surprise gift. Or did she just do it to divert the attention onto herself because she already knew the sister-in-law was pregnant? I'm so confused. Oop. The dog is hers and her fiancé. They both have their own place where the dog will be living, but she brought him to our parents' house to apparently introduce him to the family. Mom's words when I asked her about it. Commenter. Introduce a full-grown Saint Bernard to the family with an allergic member. You can't get much more flying dog fur than that. Surely the introductions could have been made at a better time. Did your mother know she was going to do this? If so, not cool, Mom. OP. I don't think she knew, since she and my dad seemed pretty surprised. And then she spent the end of the party looking inside and outside the house for droppings. So id commenter. What worries me is this person will see her plan pissed everyone off, and she will blame the dog and take it to the pound. Or worse, set it free in a remote area. People like this woman are so wrapped up in their own world, they have zero self-awareness. I didn't think of that, BH. Even though I don't think my sister would ever harm a defenseless animal, I'll keep tabs and make sure he's treated well. Commenter info. When you say she is allergic, what do you mean? You say not severely so. Not a life-threatening condition. But would she be miserable within seconds? Or is it a little bit uncomfortable? Allergies have very wide ranges. Also, they don't affect a pregnancy at all. Unless it's life-threatening, of course. The baby won't notice a thing. OP. I don't think it's within seconds, but she does start sneezing. Gets a shortness of breath. And this is an example, I pet a dog and touch her face for whatever reason, her eyes get a bit swollen and puffy. Commenter. I have not read all the comments yet, but what was the fiancé's reaction? Surely, he is having second thoughts about marrying your mess of a sister. OP. He was just kind of standing there, looking awkward as hell. But he didn't seem shocked by her behavior, and was standing by her. He even raised his glass. One more clarification. I just want to clarify that they didn't announce their pregnancy at my sister's engagement party. My brother told her, and only her privately, since she was saying no to him, asking her not to bring the dog in. As far as I know, they have a cordial relationship. Sister and sister-in-law, not overly friendly, but also not standoffish. It could be that my sister-in-law's whims dictate every event. I'm at almost every family event, Some I couldn't attend due to personal reasons. But the ones I have been to, nothing of the sort happened. I do get why it's seen as my brother and I against her. But I just feel like in this situation, he's justified. I will also be mentioning the deep clean to my parents. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. OOP is voted NTA Relationship Advice Post. Title: My 21 sister, 24F, keeps jokingly asking me who I'm sleeping with, and if I've taken my BC, birth control. This is getting so weird, guys. I made a post on another sub about something that happened with my family at my sister's engagement party. Just of it is my sister found out my niece, i.e., is pregnant, and flipped about them, and me, ruining her day. Since then, has she and I sort of made up? I sent her a text apologizing for what I said, and she accepted it, but we didn't have a proper conversation about any of it. Anyway, since my apology, she asked who I'm seeing at the moment. More importantly, if it's a man or a woman. If it's men, then how many? And if I'm being careful with my BC. I was confused and mildly offended at her acting like I'm the whore of Babylon when she knows the only guy I've had sex with is my long-term ex-boyfriend. But whatever. I told her that I just started seeing a woman and that she's not getting a niece or nephew from me anytime soon. Obviously. But it's a joke about my dad who used to warn both us and our older brother when we were younger after every family meeting that he won't have teen mothers or fathers under his roof. I thought it was her own weird way of checking up on my life, even if she had never done it before. But she literally sends me a message about my BC every couple of days, even though I told her I'm seeing a woman, not that the woman and I are having sex, but you get biology. I don't know how to approach this. Like, I have zero clue. Advice, please? Some of OP's comments. Commenter, the first read the other post. I think she's worried that you'll end up pregnant before her wedding too. I mean, it came out at her engagement luncheon that your SIL is pregnant, so she already thinks your brother Sil is one-upping her. I think she's focused on who else is going to show her up at her wedding. I'm not saying she's right or even sane, but that's the feeling I get. Oopie. But the thing is that I'm nowhere near a place in my life where I'm even thinking of having a baby. No offense to people who have babies at 21, 22, but I'm not trying to do that. Yeah, accidents can happen, but I'm not sleeping around with men. And even if I was, I would be taking double precautions. Condoms BC. I think she's miffed that my brother is having the first grandbaby and wants to have the second. IDK. But I'm worried about her behavior. TBH. This isn't healthy or normal. Commenter. Hey sis, you keep asking me about this, like it's really important to you. What's going on? Oop. I mean, I will definitely ask her, but I don't want her to get defensive because she perceives me on my brother's side in all of this. Which, yes, I'm a little bit guilty of that. Update post. October 24th, 2024, 8 days later, 5 weeks from OG post. Hi guys. It's been around a month or so and 10BH. I don't have that much of an update, but a lot of people have been asking me about the doggy, and it's easier than telling people individually, so here it is. First things first, the update on my sibling situation. My brother and Sil have gone see with my sister until they get a proper apology, which hasn't happened yet, but I think it will happen soon. My sister has been talking to my mom about wanting to be in our future nephew-niece's life. So there's that at least. Also, my Sil is officially out of her first trimester, and she and the baby are healthy and thriving, thankfully. She has been having a bit of a hard time when it comes to smells and pregnancy stuff. But I think that's to be expected. Don't come at me, just from what I've read. We've also been planning a gender reveal party for next month, so we're just focusing on the positive stuff for now. As for my sister and I did send her an apology for how harsh I was with her at the party, and she accepted it and apologized for calling me a bitch. But it's been so damn weird when it comes to our dynamic, especially since she's suddenly all up in my business about who I'm sleeping with. But that's another issue. Now for the awaited update, Barkley. Turns out the big fluff ball has an adorable bark, one you wouldn't expect when seeing him, hence his name. As some of you predicted, my sister was not up for the massive job that is taking care of a saint. Bernard, and a week and a half after the party, she called and asked me to find him another home. I volunteer at a shelter and know a lot of people who would love to adopt. I honestly wanted to keep him myself because I've grown attached, but I live in an apartment, and not only would it be impossible, it would also be cruel to keep him cooped up like that. Luckily, a friend of a friend has the space for him to be happy and safe, and took him in with the promise of letting me see him whenever we're both free. And now I get random pics and videos of Barkley and his element, all happy and bark fighting with the guy's next door neighbors. Don't worry, there's fences between them. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you guys for all the advice and opinions. I appreciate all of you. Some of OP's comments. Commenter, I mean. I'm more worried about the other neighbors who have to listen to that. But it seems like things, at least, worked out for Barkley. P. I get your concern, but from what I've seen of the guy's neighborhood, went to check it out and meet him first. It's a lot of families, and most of the kids have pets. Cats, dogs, and a parrot, guys and tell. So it seems like they're used to pet noises. I took a DNA test and discovered I'm 23% related to my husband. Our marriage is now shaken by an unexpected family connection. Original post. Hey everyone, I've known my whole life that I'm a donor. I grew up in New South Wales, and my parents were always open about it, so it was never some big secret. I didn't think much about it beyond that though, until a couple of years ago when my husband and I decided to take an ancestry DNA test. We thought it'd be fun. Maybe I'd find some half-siblings, and he'd learn a bit more about his side of the family. Well, we got the results, and I matched with him, my husband, as a half-sibling. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake, or maybe I misunderstood something. But no. After looking into it, we realized his dad was also a donor, and no one ever told him. Now here we are, married for years with 2 kids, and we're still trying to figure out how to process the fact that we're siblings. I don't even know how to explain how I feel. It's just overwhelming. I love him, of course, but this changes so much. We've already spoken to a genetic counselor, and we're trying to move forward, but it's like everything we thought we knew about our family has been flipped upside down. I just feel kind of lost. Has anyone else here gone through something like this? I'd really appreciate hearing from anyone who has dealt with something similar, or even just your thoughts. Edit. This blew up much bigger than I intended. I'm going to speak to my husband about family therapy again and sit on this information. We have no interest in going public at this point. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I think you need some family counseling. First between you and your husband, and then later, down the road, when you inevitably tell your children. I'm not sure if you're able to take leave from work, but it would be a good idea to look into that, because this is absolutely something you need to process without work distraction. I'm in therapy myself, but unfortunately, my husband is not open to that right now. He's in a big denial phase and does not wish to talk about it. Commenter 2. I'm so sorry. This was bound to happen somewhere in the world. At some point, given the current unregulated fertility industry that puts profits above the rights and interests of the donor-conceived child. If you are up to it and think it would help, I have a few pieces of media to recommend. The Man with 1,000 Kids, a documentary on Netflix. Laura High, a content creator and advocate for DCP, on TikTok, Instagram. Multiple books have helped me, such as Inheritance, by Danny Shapiro, Uprooted, and The Lost Family. I have not come across this particular scenario, where children were conceived by accidental incest between DCP. But a lot of people have other traumas related to the industry and have explored that. I also understand if you don't want to research the situation. I didn't when I first learned I was DCP, by surprise. Talking to someone is important though. You will be okay. Your kids will be okay. It's super weird and icky that this happened, but it's not your fault. OOP. I've actually seen most of that media and read a couple books from Australian DCP. I'm lucky to have been told early that I was a donor conceived. It was never a huge factor in my life until now. Update. Thank you so much for all of the responses, support, and advice. I've taken some time to process, and I wanted to provide an update on where we're at. First, I have been in individual therapy and working through everything. It's been incredibly helpful to have a space to just unravel my thoughts. My husband has also told me that he's open to couples therapy, which is a big step for us, and I'm hopeful it will help us navigate this together. To confirm some things, yes, my father-in-law is the donor, which makes him not only my husband's father but also mine. It was a lot to take in. We're both really angry that my husband's dad never told him the truth, and at the moment, neither of us are talking to him. It's just too much. We've also discovered about 40 other siblings so far, all of whom live nearby. That was another layer of this experience we weren't prepared for. We haven't met them all yet, but knowing they're out there brings its own set of challenges and questions. As for our marriage, no, we're not divorcing. We love each other and are committed to working through this, but we haven't told our children yet. We plan to get professional advice before we do. This isn't something we want to rush into without understanding the best way to approach it for their sake. I know many of you are part of the donor-conceived community, and I just want to say that while I'm very aware and involved in spaces like We Are Donor Conceived, and I follow creators like Laura High, Donor Dylan, The Queer Mama, Rachel, strangers like Medici, Sunny, Evie Lucas, etc. I'm not interested in speaking to anyone publicly about our situation. I'm really proud of people like Victoria Hill for going public, but that's not what's best for my family right now. Thanks again for listening, for the advice, and for your understanding. We're taking this one day at a time. Comments. Commenter. So very impressed with you both. This must be such hard work, and my heart goes out to you. As a donor, this is my greatest fear. I was not anonymous by choice. Back in the day, the fertility clinics capitalized on our naivety. I want a brand new hot tub. Is this a literal white elephant gift and upkeep nightmare? Should I keep or sell? Original post. Like the title says, I won the grand prize in a raffle. It's a beautiful 6-person hot tub, and I would love to own one someday. The thought of snowboarding all day and coming home to a hot tub soak sounds amazing. I do have a backyard that has room for it, but I would need to get electrical outlets added, would need to flatten the ground for a concrete pad, possibly get plumbing. Then there's the delivery, accessories, and upkeep. Are there any frugal hot tub owners out there? What is upkeep like? Do you really use it often enough to justify the cost? I'm not afraid to do the hard work necessary to install it, but wondering if in the long run, am I wasting all this money to upkeep costs? My wife keeps suggesting that we sell it and use it for a trip. What do you think? Some of OP's comments. Relevant comments. Commenter. I installed a hot tub at my last house. If you are going to use it and enjoy it, it's never going to be cheap. Chemical and water costs aren't too bad, and in my opinion, it's not that much of a hassle. But leaving the tub on 24/7/365 has considerable electricity costs, especially if you're in an area cold enough to snowboard. Our hot tub was costing us about $200 a month to run in the winter, and about $50 a month in the summer. And that's just water, electricity, and chemicals. That doesn't include repair and maintenance costs, which are low the first few years but get intense once the tub gets older. Personally, I want to be using it a few times a week to have it feel worthwhile. It was worth it for me at the time, but I don't think I'd make the choice now. I just go on an extra couple of Airbnb weekends at places with hot tubs. I've decided that outdoor saunas are much cheaper and easier to use and maintain. That's what I'll be looking at for my next home instead of a hot tub. OP, all good advice. Thank you. Commenter, they will have a cash value, but that doesn't mean they can take the cash instead. A lot of times companies donate them as a write-off, and they get the benefit of marketing and exposure. You don't have the choice between the prize and cash. OOP. This is most likely the case with my prize. I think I'd have to sell it on the FB marketplace or something similar. Commenter, check first. Why would you assume this is most likely the case? And now that I'm so invested in this, let me know. P. It was a raffle at the birthday party at the company my wife works at. The hot tub place is next door and was donated to the raffle after the owner did a work for trade thing with their business. So knowing a little of the behind-the-scenes maneuvering, I'm fairly sure it's a write-off donation, and there's no cash prize equivalent. But I'm still going to ask. Commenter, did you have to provide your SSN when you accepted it? That would be a red flag of getting taxed on it. OP, I haven't accepted it yet. Someone reminds OP they'd probably need a permit and/or inspections. Didn't even think about the permits and municipal inspection. Good points, thank you. Commenter, oh my dream. My dream. Keep it. OP, it was my dream too. I went to the raffle specifically to try and win the hot tub. So now that my dream came true, I'm really trying to make the happy ending work. After all these comments, I'm leaning towards selling it. The power costs are definitely a factor where I am. It's already been 300 plus some months. Commenter, snowboarder with hot tub here. Do it. You'll never regret it. OP, damn it, Lel, the choice is so hard. I may try and see if they will do a sauna instead. Bought a season pass to Brighton this year. Gonna be up there a lot. Commenter, where are you located? I'm in the market for one, if you're looking to sell, and we happen to be not too far. Feel free to PM if you'd like. OP. Utah. Update post. Thank you all for so many helpful comments. Like I said, I was super excited to own a hot tub. I thought I had the perfect spot for it, and was ready to do everything I could to get it installed. All the commenters brought up a lot of great points that I didn't consider. One was the increase in energy bills. Our electricity has recently undergone a 30% hike, and in the summer is over $300 a month now. Adding a hot tub in the winter would have added $100.20 per month to that bill, as we live in a cold, snowy climate. Two was the spot we picked out for it. After measuring where we thought it would go, we realized the spot wasn't big enough to fit the tub, and we would have to put it somewhere that had a bit more room. This meant I would have had to run a longer electrical line, had to rip out part of an edged pathway, and build a new gravel pad. The new spot had no privacy. It was in direct view of the neighbor's window, so adding some sort of privacy barrier would have been another cost. And it was still 20 feet from where we wanted it, which means in the winter I'd have to shovel a walkway to it and clear it all off. I know in the winter this is going to be a big factor in not using it because it wouldn't be convenient to get to. There was the HOA and resale of the home. A lot of people mentioned that hot tubs can be considered a liability to the home when selling, as well as issues with HOAs, permits, and inspections. That wasn't something we considered, and while we do plan on being in this home for a while, it's not our forever home. And 4 was the total cost and taxes. It will be reported to the IRS as a 10K's prize. So I imagine I'd have to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500 extra taxes next year. In addition to the 2Ks, I would have had to spend on the electrician, adding a gravel pad, delivery fees, as well as the increase in water and power bills monthly. That could be something like $5,000 getting everything up and running and installed, and not something I anticipated spending before Christmas. So here's what I did instead. I asked the owner of the hot tub place if I could convert the hot tub I want into a sauna instead, and he said yes. So I'm getting a super nice infrared indoor sauna that will sit inside my basement. It doesn't need expensive new power lines run, and no other associated upkeep costs going forward other than the power used. All in all, I'm super happy with the outcome. A tiny bit disappointed I don't get to soak in a hot tub, but I can still go snowboarding all day and come home to a nice heat soak. Thanks again, everyone. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, that's a bloody clever solution. I love that you negotiated. Very few people realize that negotiation gets results. See why Flora is about to recruit an entire office building to negotiate with the landlords about getting some much-needed accessibility upgrades. I mean, I'm a mediator, so I would say this, but jolly good for you anyway. Oh, OP. Thank you. Someone in the original thread mentioned Asana, and it got me thinking. I work with a lot of small businesses, so I'm used to negotiating and finding solutions. Commenter. And the post doesn't include the chemicals that are added to the water regularly. OP. A lot of the original commenters said that those weren't too expensive, so I didn't include that. But definitely a factor as well. Commenter. Saunas are such a godsend and genuinely beneficial for your health. Brilliant move. And I know sauna rooms can be a nice incentive when selling OP. Good to hear. We went with an infrared one because of the health benefits. I'm excited to try it out. After years of bullying, my sister invited me to dinner. When I arrived, she made me clean up, calling me a pathetic waitress. My parents have never concealed the fact that my sister, Helen, has always been the best child in the family. The youngest of my parents' children, she was considered their miracle child. Despite having serious health issues, my parents had been trying for years to have another child after me. My parents were effectively told to give up on growing their family after my mother experienced problems following my delivery, which prompted physicians to advise against getting pregnant again. But my mother defied all expectations and got pregnant again 5 years later. For my father, who was thrilled about the possibility of having another child, this news was nothing short of a miracle. This position as a miracle baby had a significant impact on my sister's upbringing and the way my parents regarded her. They have always treated her like a queen, going above and beyond to make sure she has the finest of everything. Her unique position within the family was further cemented by the lavish celebration of each of her accomplishments and milestones. It was obvious to everyone, including me, that my sister had a special and elevated place in our parents' affections, since this partiality was never covert. Rather, it was publicly expressed and accepted. Not to be misunderstood, my parents also made sure I had all I needed. However, their treatment of me frequently seemed like an afterthought. For example, school functions. My parents would always choose to go to my sister's function if we had activities on the same day. As if my wants and occurrences were somehow less significant, they would explain that she was the youngest and so required them more. My parents still treasure the innumerable childhood photos of my sister that are painstakingly arranged in albums. They haven't even saved one of my albums, on the other hand, saying that my photos were lost in a storm. I would have liked to see how I grew up. Therefore, I wish they could have at least saved a couple photos. When my early life wasn't kept the same way as my sister's, it's difficult to avoid feeling like an afterthought. When I was growing up, my sister Helen's problems, no matter how minor, were promptly addressed and fixed. However, my father would brush me off and label me spoiled if I ever complained or wanted something. My mother would reprimand me for being more confident like my sister and accuse me of being overly theatrical if I ever felt nervous about trying new things or approaching strangers. I always felt that my sister's worries and emotions were more important than mine because of the way my parents treated me. Then came the game of blame. I was also held accountable for my sister's activities if she ever committed a transgression. My parents say that since I was the eldest, I ought to have taught her to be better. Because of my birth order, I was always held accountable, even if I had nothing to do with her behavior. This unwarranted ongoing blaming made me even more of the underdog and made me live in perpetual shadow of my sister. Helen didn't help either. She was well aware of how to take advantage of her status as the favorite child and frequently used it to outdo me or get away with things. She would often coerce me into letting her use my possessions or put on my clothes without my consent during even the most minor arguments. She would go to our parents and complain if I ever ventured to object, accusing me of being conceited and self-centered. I would unavoidably receive criticism for not sharing and be made to feel guilty in every circumstance. But Helen's actions were distinctly biased. She was always very protective of her belongings and never let me touch them. We shared a room for a long time, and she aggressively protected her side and possessions. The dynamic remained the same even after we went into different rooms. She was quite particular about her belongings, but she always wanted me to be understanding and giving with mine. It was discouraging and frustrating to experience this double standard. I always felt alone and underappreciated because of Helen's ability to control circumstances to her advantage and my parents' steadfast support of her. They believed Helen could do no wrong, while I was always in the wrong, regardless of what I did. I had severe depression as a result of my parents' and sister's behavior. As a teenager, I experienced severe problems with my self-image, and my confidence began to decline. Particularly when Helen would argue with me or make fun of me, the tension was unbearable. I was constantly on edge due to my fear of confrontation, and I frequently felt like I was about to have a panic attack because of my parents' combative yelling. I would feel as though I was choking beneath the weight of their disappointment and rage when they approached too close during their outbursts. My family didn't seem to be aware of or concerned about my difficulties. With no one to turn to for help, I felt like an animal in a cage, caught in a vicious cycle of mental and emotional suffering. Writing down my thoughts in a journal was therefore the only thing that gave me comfort. I would write my heart out on those pages every night, sharing my sorrows, disappointments, and anxieties. It was the only setting where I felt free to be totally open about my situation. It gave me some serenity and allowed me to process the pandemonium around me, because I was worried that Helen may discover the journal and make fun of my weaknesses. I always kept it hidden beneath my bed. My worst nightmare came true one day. While I was out, Helen, who had a tendency of prying into my room even though I had repeatedly asked her to leave, discovered my journal. My one haven must have been violated when she read through its contents. My parents and Helen were seated in the living room with particularly serious expressions when I got home that evening. Given their solemn looks, I assumed there might have been a death in the family and inquired about their well-being. In order to speak with me, my dad asked me to sit down. As I obeyed, my heart began to race, and I had a bad sensation in my stomach. Then, from behind her, my mother took my journal. When I demanded to know what she was doing with my journal, my eyes dilated in amazement and disbelief, while my mother gave me an unusually serious look and inquired as to whether what I had written actually expressed my innermost sentiments. Helen simply grinned, taking pleasure in my pain. I felt completely exposed and deceived at that very moment. My notebook had been my lone haven, where I could vent my suffering and annoyance without worrying about criticism or mockery. My deepest, innermost thoughts were now exposed to the very people who inspired me to compose them. I was overcome by the seriousness of the situation, and while I fought to react, I could feel a panic attack coming. Yes, it did reflect my thoughts, I said gently, adding that they had no right to read it. My father shook his head and informed me that they were really worried about me if what I had written was accurate. He went on to add that after reading my journal, they felt that I was a psychopath who needed assistance because of the hatred they thought I had for them, and I gazed at them in confusion. I was shocked beyond belief. I had never said anything harsh about my sister or my parents. In my whole journal, all I had done was write down the feelings and experiences their acts had given me over the years. But here they were, turning my sincere thoughts into something evil. For keeping a notebook, my parents began accusing me of writing such dark things, and even calling me a psychopath. My mother continued by accusing me of making things up to fill the book, and saying that neither she nor my father had ever treated me in this manner. I needed serious help, she insisted, before I harm someone. Helen went so far as to comment that she was ashamed to call me her sister after reading my notebook, since my actions were clearly not normal, retorting that I had done nothing wrong and that I had not written anything negative about them. I attempted to defend myself. I clarified that they had no authority to condemn me based on my personal reflections because the notebook. My family, however, was obsessed with their story, that something was wrong with me, and didn't care about my explanations. In front of them, I felt so vulnerable and exposed. They seemed to have taken away the last remnant of my privacy and turned it against me. The very following day, my parents informed me that I needed serious help before things turned south, and that they would be taking me to see a psychiatrist. It was obvious that they perceived me as the issue, because of the disdain and misdirected worry in their statements. I experienced a crippling sense of powerlessness and betrayal. Instead of admitting the pain and harm they had caused, it seemed as though they were intent on making me the issue and changing the course of events. I was deeply hurt by the betrayal, and their reaction made me feel even more alone and powerless than I had already felt. I felt quite uneasy and guilty at first when I started seeing a psychiatrist, as though I had actually done something wrong. I was ashamed to express my thoughts, as I had accepted the notion that I was the problem in my family. My psychiatrist recognized my hesitancy and attempted to close the distance by using my notebook. I felt more at ease and was able to open up when she read entries from it and asked me questions based on what I had written. Since it had always been easier for me to express myself on paper than in person, the journal was a useful tool throughout our meetings. But as I was getting married to the love of my life, everything changed. My parents contacted me after learning about my impending nuptials via cousins and other family members. They were obviously shocked to be left out of such a significant event in my life. They made an unexpected call. They reluctantly expressed sorry for their previous actions and acknowledged their wrongdoings. Since I was going to have a family of my own, they acknowledged that even though they couldn't alter the past, they still wanted to make new memories with me. They pleaded with me to pardon them and let them share in this new phase of my life. Their apologies was a surprising turn of events that had me face a variety of feelings. I chose to forgive them and invite my parents to my wedding, since I was starting a new chapter in my life. In addition, they asked my sister to come, but I flatly refused, and they didn't pursue the matter. In retrospect, I'm glad I invited my parents, who had a great time at the wedding. The decision seemed natural, since they were truly thrilled for my husband and myself. Since then, I've tried to occasionally go over to my parents' house for supper in order to catch up. I occasionally have to talk to my sister on these visits. She still attempts to enrage me by making insensitive remarks about my marriage or my family, but I always make sure to confront her conduct head on and correct her. Helen has only grown more resentful of me over the years, particularly after learning that I get along better with my in-laws than she does with her husband's family. Her in-laws have never truly embraced her into their family, and apparently still hate her. She tries to put them down by making subtle remarks about my spouse or my in-laws. She expresses her annoyance and discontent with her personal situation through these comments. Helen keeps making these harsh remarks despite my dad's repeated observations of her behavior and his request for her to cease. I was told I was pregnant 4 months ago. My spouse and I are ecstatic about the news. He makes twice as much as I do, so we agreed that I should take a temporary leave of absence to concentrate on the pregnancy. My spouse and my in-laws, who have been quite sympathetic and supportive along this process, fully backed this decision. My sister was incensed when she learned that I had chosen to quit my career in order to stay at home with my unborn child, because they needed both of their earnings to make ends meet. Her husband never permitted her to be a stay-at-home mother, which was the source of her rage. Helen never had the opportunity to unwind or take a break during her pregnancy, unlike me. As a result, whenever we get together, she criticizes my choice to express her displeasure. She has referred to me as foolish and suggested that being a stay-at-home mom is humiliating. On multiple occasions, I have just laughed off her comments and told her that I had years of experience and could go back to work whenever I chose. Helen, however, has attempted to manipulate the issue by claiming that I should never have given up on my profession and that my husband is being domineering. This strikes me as ironic because I chose to leave my job. I am aware that her attempts to discredit my choice are obviously motivated more by her personal discontent with her life than by any genuine criticism of my decisions. I have made every effort to avoid her in order to preserve my mental health and give my whole attention to enjoying my pregnancy. My sister contacted me a week ago to invite me to a dinner party she was throwing. She wanted my spouse and I to go, and she intended to invite her in-laws and our whole family. I viewed this dinner gathering as a welcome diversion and an opportunity to mingle. As I hadn't gone out much since my pregnancy, I was more motivated to go since I reasoned that my sister would probably pay less attention to me with so many people around. Although I consented to go, things didn't work out that night. My spouse had to work late into the night to finish some last-minute chores. He was already under a lot of stress, and he kept apologizing to me for being late to work. I didn't hold it against him because I knew that these things may happen. We were already running late for the dinner party when he finally arrived to pick me up. I thought it was better to be late than not at all, so I chose not to cancel despite the delay. As soon as we got to my sister's house, I saw that most of the people there had already eaten dinner and were chatting casually. My dad doesn't feel comfortable driving at night, so even my parents went after supper. My sister chastised us for being late right away, and although I didn't blame her for being irritated, I took the initiative to apologize on my husband's behalf because he was obviously humiliated by the circumstance. I was relieved when Helen ushered my husband to a chair and brought him a plate of food, but she drew me aside and led me into the kitchen. There she disclosed that there was no food left for me because everyone had already consumed their second or even third helping. This realization surprised me, especially since I was already really hungry and felt even more so because I was pregnant. I was disappointed, but I decided not to dispute or voice my displeasure. I told her that I could just order something online because I knew that our tardiness had caused this trouble. I could still eat in this manner without creating any more trouble. It was nice of her to nod and offer to order me something. However, She informed me that the least I could do tonight was wash the dishes, because I had arrived so late and hadn't contributed much during the evening. I was surprised when she asked. I sneered and informed her that I hadn't anticipated being asked to work for her just because I was late for the dinner party invitation. Because I was late, I thought it was ridiculous to expect me to clear her visitors' plates. She reacted quickly and angrily. As her sister, I should be helping her, especially since she's been cooking so much all day. She shot out in a low, angry tone. She said that as my mother had assisted her in serving the guests at dinner, I should do the same because I was related. Helen made it clear that she wanted my assistance because her husband was never helpful in the kitchen. I countered that Helen shouldn't have invited so many people if she was feeling overburdened. She responded angrily and contemptuously, telling me that the least I could do was to keep quiet and provide her a hand because I would never be able to comprehend her predicament. In a scathing comment, she went on to say that it wasn't a huge problem if I assisted her as well, because, now that I was pregnant, I was just a pathetic waitress for my husband at home. Her scathing remarks caught me off guard and were really painful. The weight of her remarks caused tears to build up in my eyes, adding to my already present feelings of hunger and emotional vulnerability. I hurried into one of Helen's bedrooms and closed the door behind me because I didn't want her to see me in distress. I had to locate a place where I could gather myself. Once inside, the usual feeling of being unable to breathe was overwhelming, and I could feel my old panic attack beginning to re-emerge. I fervently prayed that no one, including my spouse, would notice my misery and pursue me. I needed this alone time to get some peace and regain emotional control. After calming down and giving it some thought, I believed that Helen deserved to be disciplined once and for all because of her constant remarks and the way she continued to treat me. I made the decision to act against her. Finding all the pictures I had taken of my old journals was the first thing I did. I took my journal with me when I left my parents' house, and throughout the years, I began to save pictures of the journal entries in my email, so I would always have a copy. I was able to locate pictures of my old journal entries, which described all the humiliations and complaints I had suffered at the hands of my sister years ago. Thanks to this, since my sister was only terrified of my brother-in-law, I decided to send him all the pictures before my husband and I departed that evening. I was aware that my parents would just chastise her for her behavior toward me, but she would never, ever change. I wanted Helen to go through a small portion of the humiliation that her husband rightfully inflicted upon her. I sent him a thorough letter outlining how Helen had been a major bully in my life. Helen had asked me to the dinner party, but I had to clean up after her and the other guests. I wrote in the message. I explained that she seemed to be jealous of my more thoughtful husband, which is why she was upset with me. In the hopes that he might better understand or take action, I tried to give him a clear picture of Helen's behavior and how it had affected me. Bill and Helen got into a heated argument as a result, as you may guess. Bill told our parents that he now saw Helen differently, since he couldn't believe she had been harassing me for years. My dad has chosen to be a little more neutral, but my mother fully blames me for their argument, since she feels that I went too far by exposing my sister. I have no regrets about letting my sister see her spouse. Update 1. For those who are curious, after learning what my sister said to me at the party, my husband is just as furious with her. He didn't know, but when I told him everything, he called my sister to vent his annoyance and correct her. I've never witnessed him so agitated, and Helen must have been really unsettled by his response. Additionally, he has made it very apparent to her that she should stop talking about our family going forward, especially since she is unaware of the whole truth. Update 2. My brother-in-law is furious with Helen since his own family has always thought she is egotistical and careless. Throughout their entire marriage, Helen had a tendency to place the blame for any argument or quarrel on everyone but herself. Because he loves her, Bill has been lenient toward her for a long time. But it was really eye-opening for him when I showed him my journal entries. He had never known our complex past, but he had always sensed that Helen and I were not particularly close. He had only witnessed a superficial aspect of our relationship and was ignorant of the seriousness of the problems that had existed between us, because Helen had conveniently never told him the truth. His perception of my sister was drastically changed after hearing my side of the tale, which at last filled in a lot of the blanks. It demonstrated even more how accurate his family's assessment of Helen was. Bill told me all of this when he contacted me this week. He also wanted to hear it all straight from my point of view. We had a lengthy phone discussion, and I was more than happy to talk. I described all the hardships I'd gone through as a child, highlighting the way my parents had always given preference to my sister. Before I nearly cut them off after leaving for college, I told my parents how my psychiatrist had attempted to address these problems with them, but they had never admitted their mistakes. My brother-in-law also talked candidly about his own interactions with Helen throughout our talk. He described how she would occasionally treat him similarly, but he had always dismissed it as just her being herself. Even though he was aware of his own shortcomings in their relationship, he was shocked to learn about the ways she had harassed me over the years. Even as an adult, it has truly caused him to reconsider their relationship as a whole. Helen may be acting harshly toward their child behind his back, which worries him as well. Update 3. For the final time, I'm answering some of your questions. After the party, my sister wrote me a number of angry texts and, of course, blamed me for everything. My husband had to step in and stop her. She hasn't contacted me or spoken to me since. Second, my mom has insisted, inform Bill, that I over-exaggerated the events from my early years and apologize. I adamantly declined, stating that my husband and I would cut her off if she persisted in endorsing my sister's position. But my father knows why I did what I did. Finally, I'm not sure what Bill will decide about his connection with Helen. My ultimate objective was to expose my sister and show her that she couldn't continue to get away with disparaging me. I have absolutely no regrets about what I did. Bill is now entirely responsible for determining what is best for his future. My brother secretly had a crush on my wife and even brought my ex to our wedding to ruin it. So I told his pregnant girlfriend he was cheating on her. Please be patient, as this will be a lengthy read. My younger brother, Jake, false name, is 25 years old, and I am 27. As siblings, Jake and I have always been close, and I assumed our connection was quite typical. Perhaps I didn't realize what was happening. Or perhaps he was really skilled at concealing his actual feelings. My now wife, Zara, 24F, and my ex-girlfriend, Ruth, 27F, are also included in this story. Zara, Jake, and I all attended the same school. I never really interacted with Zara because I was a few years older than them. I was acquainted with Jake and all of his pals, and we occasionally played together. But that was our only connection. Because our interests were so dissimilar, Jake and I began to drift apart by the time I was in my junior year. I didn't really push for a tight relationship with him because I assumed this was a normal part of growing up. We continued to get out from time to time, but we didn't exchange secrets. Boys don't really do that, so I wasn't too bothered by it either. The only significant aspect of this narrative is that Jake was hanging out with a few of his friends and their girlfriends, including Zara, just before I left for college. I want to clarify that nothing improper occurred before anyone calls me a weirdo or groomer for pursuing a 15-year-old. One of the children I met there inquired about my college location. Zara added that it was her ideal university when I told them, and I just said that she was more than welcome to ask for my assistance when she applied. That was it. She was the only person I interacted with at school. After that, I left for college and completely forgot about that little encounter because it didn't matter. I met Ruth in college. We clicked right away when we were classmates. I finally asked her out in my third year of college, though it took some time. We began dating after she said yes. Everything was wonderful in the beginning of the relationship. I felt like I truly understood her because we were going through comparable struggles and wished to live similar lives with one another. After graduating from college, I was able to secure a lucrative position, but Ruth was not as fortunate. We agreed to live together in order to save money, and I was more than happy to assist her. She was applying for jobs all over the place, but for some reason, she was never hired. Even after she reached the interview stage, even though I made enough money to support the two of us, it was still hard to save much because I was still in the early stages of my work, and I knew this was having a negative psychological impact on her. For more than a year, she continued to apply to various locations without success. She was devastated, and I did my best to be there for her. But shortly after, she realized that we could make ends meet with just my paycheck, so she gave up completely. At first, I welcomed the shift because I assumed she was simply worn out from applying and being turned down, and that it was having a negative psychological impact on her. She followed my advice to take some time off and engage in enjoyable activities. For 3 or 4 months, this continued. She stopped complaining as much, became happier, experienced less stress, and her mental health significantly improved. I felt pleased for her. In the next few weeks, I hope to gently encourage her to resume her job search. When I brought up the subject a month later, she reacted negatively, claiming that the thought of going through that terrifying experience once more made her cry. She said she would begin applying when she was ready, and asked me not to bring it up again. I accepted since I believed her, and didn't want to put undue pressure on her or come out as unsupportive. I was promoted and given a sizable raise 2 years after I started working. Now that I could at last start saving and doing the things I loved, I was ecstatic. I've had to put a lot of my aspirations on hold for the past 2 years in order to provide for two people with my paycheck. Naturally, Ruth's mental health issues and my personal interest took a back seat. Now that I had some money to spend on fun, I felt relaxed. However, Ruth began pleading with me to assist in paying for her niece's schooling as soon as she learned that I had been given a raise. Ruth's brother was impoverished and could only work for a few months at a time. He had gotten a lady pregnant and was clueless about how to raise a child, particularly after the woman died and left no family behind. Ruth's brother, who was completely unprepared to care for another human being, took the infant. Ruth pleaded with me, saying that even though she had only met her niece twice, she loved her and would never be able to forgive herself if she couldn't assist her. All of this was getting to be too much for me, so I told her I would give it some thought and ended the conversation. There was a part of me that honestly considered giving her the money, but there was also a nastier part of me that believed it was her niece and that she could get up and get work to support her. That night, I drank a lot, and as I continued to drink, all the logic and reason I had suppressed came flooding back. Since I was in love with Ruth, I never really gave the suspicion that she was attempting to take advantage of me any thought. I was unable to get rid of those emotions, though. I was pleased to support her throughout her life, but it seemed excessive to ask me to support her niece as soon as I received a raise, especially at the expense of my own desires. Since I would be stuck in this situation for the rest of my life if I started supporting the niece now, I knew it was time to stand up for myself. I sat Ruth down the following day and informed her that regardless of how regrettable the situation, I would not be providing financial support for her niece. Additionally, I told her that she was free to take a job and assist the poor child if she felt sorry for her. I didn't care what she did with the money. I refused to listen to her attempt to butt in, claiming that I was being unkind and that a poor youngster needed my assistance. I also informed her that the distribution of domestic duties would shift if she failed to find employment. If she wasn't making a financial contribution, I expected her to do 80 of the tasks because we didn't have any children or pets. I informed her that I wanted a vacation after working tirelessly for the past 2 years to support her while balancing work and home. She needed to help relieve some of my financial burden if she wasn't prepared to aid me financially so that I could have more money for myself. It would be an understatement to say that she began to yell. It was a miracle I didn't leave the conversation with my ears bleeding, because I don't think I've ever had the bad experience of listening to such high decibels before. She called me every possible epithet during her lengthy tirade, including misogynistic, manipulative, gaslighting, and financially abusive. I simply needed a break though. If she couldn't do this for me, why were we even partners? The altercation continued for a while. She probably thought that because I've never been confrontational, I would give in. I didn't, which surprised her. For several more days, we were at a standstill. She cut me off once more when I attempted to bring up the subject. I realized we were done at that point. I was merely supporting her life and receiving nothing in return, therefore, there was no future for me in this relationship. It was a messy split. Because she was unemployed, she had nowhere to go. I informed her that I was done with her and that she should have her problems straightened out by then, but I was willing to give her some money to help her get by for a month or two. She broke down in tears, accusing me of faking and performing the whole drama act. I informed her that my decision was final and that I was no longer interested in this relationship. It could not be saved, and all the solutions she was now offering ought to have been presented to her while we were still together, not as a last resort. The split was nonetheless unpleasant, even though I had set her up for a few months. I didn't understand how much dead weight I'd been carrying until she walked out. I could spend so much time and effort on myself. I resumed interests I had given up while in school. These pastimes allowed me to get back in touch with Zara. Zara chose to pursue painting as a career, despite not attending my college, even though it was somewhat of a covert pastime, because it wasn't deemed masculine enough. I had always loved doodling as a child. I went since I was curious about the art show in my city. I discovered Zara there. We started chatting after she displayed a piece in the exhibition. I had broken up with Ruth a few months prior to this. When I asked Zara how things were doing, we struck up a conversation that we both found enjoyable. We agreed to get together once more, and she said she would notify me of any upcoming art events in the area. She did. After we reconnected, we gradually began to fall in love. I was already deeply in love with her when I finally asked her out a year later. When I tried to ask Jake about her, he told me that they hadn't spoken since she broke up with a guy from his school friend group. I won't go into all the specifics of my relationship with Zara, because they aren't pertinent to this tale. But know that we have always been friendly and equal partners. And I knew she was the person I wanted to marry from a young age. Ruth made a few attempts to contact me during this time, but I always turned her down. Zara knew this every time it occurred, and she was confident enough to trust me. A year into our relationship, Zara and I were already considering marriage when I took her to supper with my family. That has never been a problem, because my parents don't meddle in their children's private matters. Zara and my family got along well, and the supper was enjoyable. We were all discussing how amusing it was that life operates in weird ways, and how my run-in with Zara again was entirely coincidental. At that point, Jake joked that he was shocked that his high school infatuation would end up becoming his sister-in-law. All those in attendance interpreted it as a lighthearted joke at the moment. Zara even claimed that the only person in their group who was even remotely engaging to converse with was Jake. I didn't give Jake's remark any thought, and the dinner was enjoyable. He also appeared to be really pleased with me. Even though he had been in several relationships, I had no idea that he had been harboring affections for Zara all these years. The problems began when the wedding was being planned. At the time, I didn't see it coming, since I never imagined my own brother would do something like this. At first, it was minor infractions that might be explained by his general forgetfulness, such as failing to check in with the caterer or misjudging the time of the dress appointment. I now see that he purposefully caused a wedge between Zara and me in order to somehow call off the wedding. It didn't work. Even though we were both under a lot of stress, we were too resilient to be shaken by a few missed appointments. If anything, Zara's snippiness and short fuse with Jake simply made him feel worse. The wedding day was the last straw. Ruth and I hadn't communicated all this time. To be honest, I had no idea where she was, what she was doing, or how she was doing, and I had no interest in her. I had no idea that Jake had been communicating with her for months before the wedding. If nothing else worked, he intended to get Ruth to convince or pressure me into leaving Zara. He was hoping for some sort of intervention, like drama. Despite not being on the guest list, she arrived as Jake's companion. I was taken aback by this since we expected Jake's girlfriend to be present, and everyone in the family had met her. I had a horrible feeling, but I didn't have time to ask him why Ruth was there. Fortunately, Ruth had not yet caught Zara's attention. Ruth got up and began yelling in front of everyone just before Zara was set to go down the aisle. She said that she was the love of my life, that she was willing to take me back, and that I didn't have to marry Zara. There was such a ruckus that Ruth began to weep and beat her feet like a spoiled kid. In all honesty, it was pitiful. Taking Jake by the collar, I rushed over to him and yelled at him to get out. He claimed that Zara and he were destined to be together, and that Ruth and I were meant to be together, and that he had come to put things right. I was horrified by the ridiculous rubbish he continued to spew. I requested that my pals take him and Ruth out of there. Zara came out at this moment, and I'm not even sure if she understood what was going on, but she strolled calmly over to Ruth, blew her a kiss, slapped her in front of everyone, and requested her bridesmaids to start the music. Never in my life have I witnessed anything so legendary. Ruth found it really humiliating. And, rather than causing a controversy around me, she simply made a show of herself in front of everyone. Given the situation, the remainder of the wedding proceeded as smoothly as possible. I didn't hope for such a dramatic day, but there wasn't much I could do to change the course of events at that point. Immediately following the wedding, I blocked Jake. He had shown me plenty, and I had little interest in hearing his version of events. The fact that Zara and Jake had never even truly bonded made it all the more reprehensible and nasty. To be honest, he was dangerous to be around and possessed delusions. Above everything, I felt terrible for Violet, his lover. I called Violet a few days after the wedding to find out why she didn't go and why Jake didn't invite her as a guest. Before I chose to interfere in their relationship, I needed to know what type of story he had been telling her. She told me bluntly that I didn't have to act like I liked her, and that she would much rather I just be honest with her. I quickly realized that Jake had prevented Zara from attending the wedding by using either Zara or me as an excuse. She urged me to stop acting when I questioned her about it, stating that Jake had already informed her that she wasn't invited, which is why he didn't receive a guest at the wedding. She claimed that she didn't mind him leaving, or that we didn't like her, but she was really offended by the fact that the whole family acted as though they liked her when we actually didn't. I firmly informed her that Jake had deceived her, and that none of that was real. I pleaded with her to keep our talk private from Jake and our parents for the next 2 weeks, and that Zara and I would meet her when we got back from our honeymoon. I had to provide her a picture of the invitation that was sent to Jake, which obviously contained a +1, because she claimed she wouldn't betray Jake on our behalf. I also validated her attendance with Jake by sending her screenshots of our chats. She claimed not to believe us. So I told her that I understood, and that we weren't requesting her trust, but rather that she should remain silent until we could meet and address the misunderstanding. She consented, but I wasn't sure if she would follow through on it. I was eager to expose Violet Jake's true nature, but I could only hope that everything would go smoothly during my honeymoon. Update 1. I had no idea this story would become so well known. As I mentioned, I went on my honeymoon and didn't care to check Reddit, but my inbox is overflowing with requests for updates. Thankfully, nothing untoward occurred during the actual honeymoon. Jake didn't try to phone me, and he was still blocked. Violet texted Jake briefly to let him know that she hadn't discussed our chat and that she wanted to meet as soon as I got back from my honeymoon. A few hours had passed since the meeting. Violet didn't feel safe visiting our house, so we met at a cafe. At first, she was really protective, and it was obvious from her demeanor and body language that she didn't want to hear what we had to say. However, we thoroughly explained everything to her. She first didn't believe us and called us crazy for making such a false accusation against Jake. I did, however, ask some acquaintances if they had any wedding films while we were on our vacation. Although there wasn't a single video that showed the full experience, other people were filming, so we were able to piece the incident together in general. After showing Violet those movies, I gave her the rundown on Ruth's entire predicament. At that point, she began to trust us. When she inquired about any past interactions between her and Jake, Zara adamantly denied it. It was difficult for Violet to accept that Jake would be so naive about everything, particularly if nothing was happening. Zara claimed to be equally perplexed. She didn't know how or when Jake fell in love with her, and she thought that she had fallen for him. They had only interacted for 10 or 12 times at most. We informed Violet that we believed it was our responsibility to notify her of the situation, and that she might use the information however she saw fit. Additionally, we informed her that we had blocked Jake and would no longer be communicating with him, and we didn't anticipate this changing in the near future. She acknowledged that she could see our point of view, but she also stated that she wanted to speak with Jake right away. We made an effort to talk her out of it, but she felt that she owed it to herself to know if staying with Jake was wise, especially since she was pregnant. Zara and I both congratulated her on her pregnancy and assured her that we would always be there for her. Violet stated that although she was certain she wanted to move forward with the confrontation, she would have to reveal that we had contacted her and told her everything. Zara and I understood that supporting Violet was the correct thing to do, even though it wasn't ideal because we both wanted to avoid getting involved in Jake's turmoil. We assured her that she had our undivided attention and that we would stop at nothing to support her. I am aware that this is not the end, but that was the only thing that transpired during the meeting. For Jake, everything is about to explode up, and he has no idea what's going to happen. Update 2. Although I am aware that this update will be released shortly, this situation has gotten out of hand. I hate accidentally starting this storm, and Jake is going to take a serious hit. Violet wasted no time in getting right to the point after speaking with us. She asked Jake if he was at work when she called him. She stormed over to his office at that precise moment and confronted him after he said yes. It became ugly. She asked if he had done the things we had told her about and walked right into his office, which she was given permission to enter because she had told them she was dropping off some files for him. Violet wouldn't have it when Jake tried to explain that it wasn't the right place to talk and that they would talk about it when he got home. HR had to be summoned up to his floor because there was a good deal of shouting going on. This is where Jake's situation becomes even better, or worse. Violet identified herself as Jake's girlfriend and revealed that she was pregnant when the HR assistant asked her who she was and why she was making such a fuss. She was shocked when Jake denied it. He categorically denied dating her. More shouting followed, and Violet was finally led away. That day, a storm awaited Jake as he returned home. I don't know the specifics, but they got into a huge fight. I do know that it was discovered that Jake had been having an affair with Violet for a considerable amount of time, and that the lady he was having an affair with was the HR assistant who had stepped in to break the news. Jake is therefore doomed. Violet is a no-nonsense woman who doesn't put up with disrespect. Therefore, I'm positive that she will leave him. It is nearly impossible for her to forgive Jake and condone cheating. Jake's workplace has an extremely stringent no-dating policy about his affair partner. Employees are forced to sign contracts and other documents. His affair partner, let's call her Jane, found out that Jake had been pretending to be a single man and that he had a pregnant girlfriend after the altercation and Violet's tirade at work. When Jane discovered that Jake had been lying to her the entire time and that she was the other lady, she was horrified. Word spread quickly, and Jake is currently facing criticism at work for his actions. Jake is in a lot of trouble because Jane has ties to the company's executives, which makes things worse for him. He will undoubtedly lose Violet, and he may lose his job. Jake has nowhere to go because Violet has also evicted him from the house, which turns out to have been Violet's grandmother's. In the middle of the night, Jake came to see us and gave me an explanation of everything. For some reason, I let him in. Never in my life have I witnessed him so enraged. He would not stop yelling that Zara would one day leave me for him, that I had destroyed his life, and that I never deserved someone like her. I was genuinely concerned for his mental health because of how insane he sounded. He requires assistance, possibly from a psychiatrist or a therapist. Jake also became aggressive with me. I'm aware that I'll be called a fool for not calling the police on him, but ultimately, he's my brother, and I didn't want to add to his troubles. More than anything, I felt sorry for him. It's incomprehensible how one foolish choice can ruin someone's life. He had it all, a fantastic profession, a devoted and caring fiancé, and now a baby on the way. But he blew it all away with a series of foolish choices while living in a bubble of bizarre illusions. Right now, I simply feel bad for him. Update 3. Jake was laid off. Even while this is not shocking, I still feel horrible. Violet no longer wants to interact with him after their breakup. Violet has the full support of Zara, me, and my parents. Jake now believes that because of a harmless prank, I have alienated the entire family. Yes, he is now claiming that his pledge of unwavering love was a hoax. He has been totally shunned by the family, and no one is believing this new story of his. This drama has been annoying me, and I'm not sure where he's residing at the moment. As a recent bride, I can't keep rushing around cleaning up Jake's mess. I'm happy that I brought Violet into this in the first place, but I never imagined things would get so out of control. I don't see how Jake can get over this. It's a complete mess. I don't blame my parents for being upset with him because he threw everything away and was essentially a jerk. I don't know how he came to be this way. We weren't brought up this way. This will be my final update though. Zara and I have come to the conclusion that we must move on from this. Violet and our niece or nephew will always have a home with us, and we will support them in any manner they require. We're done though, other than that. I appreciate all of the advice, Reddit. I never imagined that I would have my own dysfunctional story to tell, but that is what it is. Karen won't take our son trick-or-treating, calling Halloween silly. Am I the jerk for insisting she lets him enjoy it? For weeks, my 7-year-old eldest, Liam, has been giddy with anticipation for Halloween. Convinced that trick-or-treating is the year's high point, he hasn't stopped talking about it. However, I must admit that I find the entire situation somewhat absurd. Although I am aware that Halloween is observed in other nations, It seems absurd to me that we live in Australia. I've never seen any decorations, and it's not customary here, at least not in our neighborhood. In fact, the few placards I've seen openly criticize Halloween because they believe it to be un-Australian. We haven't had a single trick or treater come on our door in the 5 years we've been here. But I still buy a large bag of candy every year, just in case. Sorry, but it's just not something people do here, I have been saying to Liam. Liam's excitement peaked as Halloween drew near. He was asking to go trick or treating, practically jumping off the walls. I attempted to explain that it wasn't typical in this area, but he didn't seem to care. All he wanted to do was dress up and go candy hunting with his 5-year-old brother, Noah, who was just as excited. My wife, Alicia, flatly refused to take them when I brought it up to her. She sneered. It's just a silly American tradition. I want to avoid wasting my time on it. I was annoyed. Alicia wouldn't even think about making things special for Liam, who was all fired up for something he perceived as amazing. I attempted to talk her out of it, but she refused to listen. She insisted I have better things to do. The issue was that I was unable to take them myself because I had a work trip planned that would take me away on Halloween. Perhaps you could take them out for a short while, I recommended. She gave a headshake. I simply failed to see the purpose. I would want to unwind at home. Halloween is nothing more than an exaggerated candy grab. I grew increasingly irritated the more I considered it. It felt unfair to deprive our children the opportunity to celebrate something that so many others get to, and I didn't want to start a fight. I began thinking that even if it meant defying Alicia's desires, I should just take kids to a neighborhood where trick or treating is accepted. I finally said, I can't believe you won't even consider it, after a long day of back and forth. It's the only night of the year, so they're thrilled. Is this asking for too much? Alicia's face was set in defiance as she crossed her arms. Perhaps you should have considered that before planning your trip, if you truly care that much. I'm not going to do it. It's absurd. Dejected, I took out my phone to research Halloween activities. Even if Alicia is reluctant, perhaps I could find a way to make it work if I couldn't take them. Update. At last, I discovered a neighborhood gathering that provided a secure environment for trick or treating. Since it's before I depart for my trip, I made the decision to take them there personally. Even if it meant getting some blowback from Alicia for defying her wishes, I couldn't wait to see the joy on their faces. This entire circumstance has been the final nail in the coffin. I eventually made the decision to inform Alicia that I wanted a divorce because I've been tired of her attitude for a long time. I'm currently cleaning up our house, which she essentially ruined before leaving to live with her sister, and she handled it about as well as I had anticipated. My boyfriend's intense relationship with his childhood teddy bear is making me uncomfortable. Am I overreacting, or should I be worried? Original post. Okay, now please, no joke. This is actually serious. Also, this is a throwaway account, and I was an idiot when writing my name and typed throwaway instead of throwra. I have been with my boyfriend for 3 months now, so it's pretty new. So far, everything is going well, except this tiny little detail. He has this teddy bear. Let's name him Teddy. Teddy has always been a part of my boyfriend's life. He got him for his birth, and when at around the age of 5 or 6, or whatever age is the appropriate age to remove a teddy bear from a child, his parents tried taking Teddy away from him. He screamed and cried so loud without stopping, they ended up giving up. So he kept Teddy with him his whole life. He mentioned Teddy to me pretty early, about a week after us being together. He showed me pictures of him, and I found it cute at first. He had plenty of pictures of him in different situations. Him with a mug, him laying in bed, him studying. I truly found it adorable, since I thought it was just a joke really, and didn't think that Teddy was such a big part of his life. The more we got to know each other, the more he started mentioning him. He'd often make jokes about him. When he had to come back to his flat, he'd say, "I have to come back. Teddy is waiting for me." And then later he'd text me, "Okay, I put Teddy to bed, so now I might go to sleep as well. I don't want to wake him up." Again, a little weird but cute still. But he really started talking about him constantly, always linking what we were doing to him. Oh, I wish Teddy was with us to see that. Teddy doesn't really like people, so I won't take him with me for this party, etc. He'd send me selfies with him at least twice a week. He also sometimes said weird stuff, like whenever we watched a sex scene in a movie, he'd say, "That's what me and Teddy do when we're alone." Or when I asked when he lost his virginity, he answered, "Oh, I lost it with Teddy a few years ago." They were jokes that made me uncomfortable. He always seems to consider him as a baby, his son, his brother. So him being sexualized was extremely weird for me. I told him then that it was weird, and he just laughed, but I don't think he took me seriously. About a month ago, I told him I was okay with him bringing Teddy when he was staying around my flat. I could see it was making him sad to leave him, and also was very curious to finally see him in person. I can't go to my boyfriend's flat. There are rules that are strict. He can't invite anyone. So that day I drove to his flat, and he went with all his stuff and Teddy. When he got in the car, he pulled him out from his bag and had him give me a kiss on the cheek. When we drove, he opened the window and put Teddy out of the car, a bit like a dog would. He said it was rare for Teddy to travel like that, and he could feel that he was happy. Teddy smells a lot. My boyfriend hasn't washed him in 12 years. For the rest of the car drive, he hugged him and gave him kisses. He has a weird twitch, where he just compulsively pats the back of Teddy. It makes a weird sound, because Teddy used to be able to play music when you pressed his belly. He always rubs Teddy's clothes in between his fingers. You can guess that Teddy is in a pretty bad state. He used to be red, and now he's just gray. When we're together in bed, he always puts Teddy's mouth on my mouth, and I always avoid it, as I find it disgusting. And I told him that I hate it, but he doesn't listen. He always tries to have Teddy touch my boobs or my arse. When we make love, I often end up finding him in between us, and every time I throw him away. My BF says, "Oh no." He likes to watch in a joking way. He often mentions us having a threesome with Teddy, him, Teddy, being great at licking, and them, always doing kinky stuff together. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know communication is important. I tried talking to him so many times, sometimes in a joking way too, so he doesn't feel attacked. Like once, I asked who would he choose if he had to choose between me and Teddy. He said Teddy, but also so many times in a serious way. I told him I didn't like when he was rubbing Teddy on my face and body. I told him I found his relationship with him way too intense and weird. But every time, he didn't take it seriously, made jokes, and never truly told me what he thought. I should mention that he is like that for any serious conversation. All he does is make awkward jokes, and he never tells me how he feels. He said I love you first, because he was drunk. This is becoming hard to handle. I have been away from him for 2 weeks, and was kind of relieved. I wouldn't see Teddy anymore, but all he did was send pictures. And whenever I asked him, "What are you doing?" or "What did you do today?" his answer was playing with Teddy. Today he told me I was perfect, which was a first, and I sure didn't expect that. He doesn't give a lot of compliments. When he said that, I said really, and his reply was, "Actually, no. Teddy is perfect. You come way after him." I just gave up and didn't reply. I have 3 questions. 1. Am I overreacting? Am I the one not being tolerant enough? Am I some boring girlfriend who can't welcome some childishness in her couple? 2. What should I do? Should I let him live his life with Teddy? Should I ask him to make a real choice? Should I ask him to just stop the sexual jokes? Like, who am I to ask such things I don't know? Is it my place to tell him to stop being so weird with his teddy bear? And 3. How do I get him to finally talk to me and take me seriously? Telder, my BF, has a weird relationship with his teddy bear. He considers him as a baby, a son, but still makes very sexual jokes about him, often involving me by having him touch my body, and it's making me uncomfortable. What can I do? Update. I did not expect to get that many replies. I woke up to a crazy amount of messages, so thank you all so much. Now you all really scared me as fuck. I need to see him today, so I will tell you how it went. I'm not sure what to do yet, but I'll definitely have a serious talk with him. I'll try. And then, depending on his answer, I'll either give him a chance or say goodbye. Top comments. Chipman 5674. How on earth am I still single, Bepatius? Because you don't have a kick-ass wingman like Teddy, who's willing to do 3 ways and shit. 4M, I bet. Teddy looks radiant under a strong black light. But seriously. What the fuck? I've been married for a couple years, and as an average-looking woman, I ran into my fair share of weird dudes while dating. But what? If I had told my girlfriends even a light version of this dude's behavior, they would be holding an intervention for me to get away from him, ASAP. Even if this was only a strange, immature coping mechanism, it's still not acceptable. The fact that he has strongly implied that he uses Teddy as a masturbation aid. What? I love my husband, but if he started carting around a pocket pussy and made me kiss it, touch it, without my consent? If women like OP exist, who are willing to put up with shit like this, barring you being some kind of Ted Bundy weirdo, I also have no idea why you're single. Golden Mummies, Teddy Bundy abortion lasagna. So, I'm pretty sure I used to be friends with this dude on Facebook, and ended up blocking him. He had several profiles, one for Teddy, and would harass the hell out of women, then blame it on Teddy. He told one of my friends he hopes she gets raped, and then blamed it on Teddy and tried to re-add her on a different account. He has a comic novel or something he's working on about him and Teddy, and he makes the girls who block him or get upset with him the villains they defeat. If it's the same dude, he's out of his fucking mind, and you need to run. Edit. I didn't want to unblock the guy's profiles, because I have to wait 48 hours to block him again, and he scares me. But I found one of his many profiles that seems to be abandoned. He uses an alias, so I don't know if OOP would recognize the name. However, his profile is full of photos of the creepy old bear, so maybe she'll recognize the bear. This is Teddy. I certainly hope there's not 2 of these creepazoids running around. This particular dude has a crime scene photo of a dead rape victim laying face down in a field as his cover photo. So if it's the same dude, she needs to bail, change her phone number, and move. Edit 2. Thanks, got the gold and silver. The thread is locked now, so I can't reply to anyone, but OP confirmed this is not Teddy. Update. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to you all. I did not expect to get that many comments. I'm safe for those who are worried. You all really scared me though. I had many questions that were asked, so I'm quickly going to reply to the ones I saw the most often. Why are you with this guy? Are you insecure? Why are your standards so low? Etc. I obviously didn't write down his nicest description. Apart from this weird teddy bear fetish, he was a completely normal guy, with friends, going to parties, studying, and so on. He's quite the popular guy, in fact, even though I don't care about this kind of thing. He took me on dates and made me feel special. I really thought he was a keeper. At the beginning, him being a little childish didn't bother me. I myself have stuffed pets, and even though they're in the cupboard, I used to love them as a kid. That's when he started sexualizing his bear and involving me in it that I freaked out. The problem is, it's so hard to tell when he's joking or not. He constantly makes jokes. That's why I never could tell whether I was overreacting or not. Is he just joking, or does he mean what he says? However, the one thing I really didn't see coming, and you guys helped me realize, it is his lack of respect towards me and my boundaries. Sometimes it's easier to see from an external point of view. This whole time, I was too focused wondering whether it was normal or not for me to feel uncomfortable. And I didn't realize that not once did he help me feel more comfortable, despite me telling him how I felt. Thank you a lot, because that's the one thing you all really helped me for. I would have probably taken more time to realize it on my own, even though it now looks obvious. About the guy who said he knew him. Abortion lasagna. Unfortunately, it wasn't him. Thank you so much for your help though. Run away. He's going to kill you. He's a psychopath, etc. Although his behavior is extremely weird, I don't see him hurting anyone. But obviously it's easier for me to tell since you all had to base your opinion on what I said. He doesn't match the psychopath personality at all. I'm not allowed to visit him because he lives in a private home. A person hosts him in one of their bedrooms. And this person doesn't allow any visit. It is weirdly strict, yes, but it's believable. And I've seen his sister once, who confirmed that she couldn't visit him herself. One thing is sure though, although he may not hurt anyone, he seems to have serious problems, and I'm not sure I can handle it. It's fake. It looks like the movie Ted. I know it all looks surreal, but it is true. I have multiple pictures of Teddy, if some of you are interested. I know a lot about Teddy's past, because my beef won't shut up about him. That's why I know the movie Ted, but I have never seen it, and my BF actually suggested that we could watch it like a month ago. Burn Teddy. Make him disappear, etc. Thank you. I did think about it a lot. I often hide him when he brings him in my flat, so I know exactly where he is, and so my BF doesn't think about him. He always ends up looking for him though, but still, it gives me a break. What did you do in the end? I was meant to see him today, so I picked him up, and we drove to my flat. Of course, Teddy was there, and when he came in the car, my GF had him give me kisses and stuff. I said, "Stop please," in a cold way, and he stopped. I said we needed to talk, and he listened because I started crying. I thought it would be hard for me to start talking, but since I was so stressed with all your comments, I just broke down and cried. I told him how I needed him to stop with Teddy, that he needed to stop being so close and dependent on him, that Teddy shouldn't come to my flat anymore. At first he was silent, but then he said he didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable with it, that he was purely joking, that he knew Teddy wasn't real, and that it was hurting him to see that I thought he had a problem. I was extremely disappointed by his reaction and just told him I needed a break. I drove him back to his flat, and that's where I am now. Edit. Everyone is saying the post is deleted, and I have no idea why. It wasn't deleted before. The original post is available in the comments. It's quite easy to find. Thank you to you all for your support. I realized there was a confusion. No, I'm not in his flat. I'm home and safe. Tonight I'll sleep at a friend, so she and I can talk about it. And I'm never going back with him. He sent me terrible messages all night, which convinced me to never get back with him. Thank you again for helping me, and have a nice day. X. I'll send a picture of Teddy, for those who want one in a bit, but I have to get ready for school first. Don't worry, the face of my BF won't be shown. Top comments, Ursula Verg. It was hurting him to see that I thought he had a problem. Even if he was joking sometimes, he most certainly does still have a problem, given all the stuff he was doing. He's trying to normalize his behavior. It isn't normal. He needs therapy. I'm glad to see you're taking a break, and that you're all right. OP. Thanks for the update. Prithian on seriously. This dude had an ex-girlfriend who didn't like Teddy, and it was implied this was one of the reasons they were no longer together. Brought Teddy everywhere. Repeatedly forced sexual interactions with Teddy on the OP. Wes wouldn't wash or in any way maintain Teddy in a sanitary condition. When OP vocalized her discomfort, would joke it away and continue the behavior. It is so sad that OP thinks he has a problem. What? The FCK. He clearly has at least one problem. Depending on how much we believe he believes Teddy is real determines what problem that might be. But there's at least one in every possible interpretation of this scenario. AITA. The more I think about this, the more I think him truly believing Teddy is real, in some sense, is actually the less disturbing problem.